Elon Musk wasn't a stranger to receiving strange emails. Every day, his inbox overflowed with proposals, ideas, and pleas. Some genius, most absurd. But this one was different. Subject: I've solved the future. The message was short, almost cryptic. Dear Mr. Musk, my name is Max Anderson. I'm 6 years old, and I've built something that will change the world. I need your help to make it real. P.S. Check the attachment. Elon's finger hovered over the email's attachment icon. His inner circle often warned him not to open unsolicited files, but his curiosity got the better of him. When the file loaded, Elon blinked at the screen. It was a snippet of code, elegant in its simplicity yet packed with potential. "What on earth?" he muttered, leaning closer to his monitor. The code seemed to outline a revolutionary approach to energy optimization, a concept his teams had been struggling to crack for years. The logic behind it was so advanced that it felt as if it came from someone with decades of experience, not a child. Elon shook his head, wondering if this was some elaborate prank. Still, something about the email tugged at him. He forwarded it to his lead engineer, Julia Martinez, with a short message. "Find out if this is real." By the end of the day, Julia's reply was just as baffled as Elon's initial reaction. "This is brilliant. I have no idea how a 6-year-old could have written this." Elon leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. His instincts told him this was worth pursuing. He fired off a reply. "Max, consider me intrigued. Can you and your parents visit Tesla headquarters next week? I'd love to hear more." Elon. Less than an hour later, his phone buzzed with a response. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. I'll be there. My mom says she can take the day off work." As Elon set his phone down, a rare grin spread across his face. He had no idea what to expect, but for the first time in a long while, he felt the spark of pure excitement. Something big was about to happen. Max Anderson wasn't your average 6-year-old. While most kids his age were consumed with cartoons and playground games, Max was captivated by the blinking cursor of a computer screen. Max's obsession began when he was barely 4. His mom, Laura, worked long hours as a nurse, and their modest apartment was filled with books she picked up from thrift stores to keep Max occupied. One day, he stumbled upon an old programming manual and started copying lines of code into a dusty laptop she bought secondhand. When the screen responded, his world lit up. By 6, Max was fluent in Python and tinkering with machine learning. He didn't just play video games, he built them. But this brilliance came with a price. Max's peers didn't understand him, and his teachers often dismissed him as a troublemaker for challenging their lessons. "Max, why can't you just follow the assignment?" His teacher scolded one afternoon when he presented a self-coded weather simulation instead of the basic temperature chart she had asked for. "I did," Max replied, his voice steady. "I just made it better." At home, Laura tried to shield him from the world's misunderstandings. She adored her son's boundless curiosity but often felt overwhelmed. Single motherhood was hard enough without raising a genius. "Max, are you sure this is a good idea?" Laura asked one evening as she read Elon Musk's reply on their shared laptop. "Mom, it's Elon Musk," Max said. His small hands spread wide in exasperation. "The man is changing the world. He'll get it." Laura hesitated. She wanted to support Max's dreams, but feared he might be diving into a world too big for his little shoulders. "What if it's too much, honey? You're still just a kid." "I can handle it," Max replied, his tone carrying a maturity far beyond his years. After a restless night of deliberation, Laura emailed back, confirming their visit. The day of the meeting, Max was a bundle of energy as they walked into Tesla's headquarters. The sleek, futuristic building seemed to hum with innovation, and Max's eyes sparkled as he took it all in. A receptionist greeted them and led them to a glass-walled conference room. Moments later, the door opened, and in walked Elon Musk himself. Max's jaw dropped. Seeing Elon Musk in person was like meeting a superhero. Laura, too, couldn't hide her awe, though she tried to play it cool. "Max," Elon said, extending a hand, "it's a pleasure to meet you." Max shook his hand with a firm grip. "The pleasure's mine, Mr. Musk. I've been waiting for this moment for weeks." Elon chuckled. "That makes 2 of us. Let's see what you've got." Max didn't waste a second. He pulled out a tablet and launched his program, walking Elon and a small group of engineers through his ideas. As the room filled with animated discussion, Laura sat quietly in the corner, watching her son hold his own among some of the world's brightest minds. By the end of the presentation, Elon leaned back in his chair, visibly impressed. "Max, this is astonishing. You've done something here that even my top engineers couldn't figure out." Max beamed with pride, but Elon's next words tempered his excitement. "But here's the thing," Elon said, his gaze serious. "This is big, bigger than you might realize. Are you sure you're ready for what comes next?" Max nodded without hesitation. "I've been ready my whole life." Laura's heart swelled with pride and a tinge of worry. As the meeting concluded, she couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change forever. The ride home from Tesla headquarters was quiet. Laura glanced at Max through the rearview mirror, his small face glowing with excitement. "You were amazing back there," she said, breaking the silence. Max grinned, clutching his tablet tightly. "Do you think they liked it?" "Liked it?" Laura laughed softly. "Elon Musk called you brilliant, Max. I'd say they more than liked it." Max's face lit up, but Laura's smile faltered as she returned her eyes to the road. She couldn't help but feel a weight pressing on her chest. Was it fair to let Max dive into something so massive? 2 days later, an official email arrived from Tesla, outlining Elon's proposal. "We would like Max to work with our team on a pilot project, integrating his algorithms into our renewable energy systems. It's a groundbreaking opportunity, and we provide full support for his involvement. Of course, we'll also ensure his education continues uninterrupted." Laura read the email twice, then a third time. Her stomach churned as she pictured her son immersed in a world of corporate deadlines and relentless expectations. But the sparkle in Max's eyes as he peeked over her shoulder melted her hesitation. "Mom, this is it," Max exclaimed. "This is what I've been waiting for." Laura sighed, kneeling down to meet his eager gaze. "Max, this is a big deal. It's not just about showing them your cool program. It's going to take time, effort, and—" "I know, Mom, and I'm ready for it," Max said, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "Please say yes." The following week, Max and Laura arrived back at Tesla headquarters, this time with a mix of excitement and nerves. They were met by Julia Martinez, Tesla's lead software engineer. "Hi, Max. I've been looking forward to meeting you again," Julia said, crouching to Max's level. "Me too," Max replied, giving her a confident handshake. Julia led them to a private workspace, where a group of engineers was already waiting. Screens displayed complex data sets, and the hum of innovation buzzed through the air. "All right, Max," Julia said, motioning to a whiteboard. "This is where we're at. Show us how your algorithm can improve what we've got." Max's eyes sparkled as he launched into action, explaining his ideas with the enthusiasm of a seasoned professional. He scribbled on the whiteboard, adjusted code on his tablet, and answered questions with ease. Laura watched from the corner, her emotions a whirlwind of pride and apprehension. She marveled at how effortlessly Max fit in with these adults, his tiny frame dwarfed by the larger-than-life environment. By the end of the day, Elon returned to the workspace to check on their progress. "How's it going?" he asked, glancing at Julia. "Better than we expected," Julia replied, a note of disbelief in her voice. "Max's code isn't just improving our system. It's rewriting how we think about energy modeling." Elon turned to Max, his expression unreadable. "Kid, you're not just talented. You're ahead of your time." Max beamed, but Elon's serious tone returned. "This is where the hard part begins. If you want to be part of this, you'll need to handle real challenges, setbacks, criticism, and a lot of hard work." "I can do it," Max said without hesitation. Elon nodded, his gaze shifting to Laura. "What about you, Ms. Anderson? Are you on board with this?" Laura hesitated, the weight of the decision bearing down on her. She looked at Max, whose hopeful eyes pleaded silently. Finally, she nodded. "If Max is sure, then so am I." Elon extended a hand, first to Max, then to Laura. "Welcome to Tesla." As they left the office that day, Max couldn't stop smiling. Laura, on the other hand, couldn't shake the sense that they had just taken the first step on a journey that would test them both in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Max and Laura arrived at Tesla headquarters early the next morning, greeted by the same sleek, futuristic vibe that had wowed them the first time. This time, though, their visit carried more weight. Max wasn't just a visitor anymore. A young assistant escorted them to Tesla's innovation lab, where Max's future team awaited. The room buzzed with activity. Engineers debated algorithms, holographic displays projected futuristic designs, and robots whirred in the background. Julia Martinez stepped forward, smiling warmly. "Welcome back. Max, ready for your first day?" "Absolutely," Max replied, his voice brimming with confidence. Julia crouched slightly to meet his gaze. "All right, genius. Let's see what you've got." Max was soon immersed in his first challenge, integrating his algorithm into Tesla's energy distribution platform. The team had set up a workstation with multiple monitors, a high-powered computer, and a custom coding environment tailored to his needs. As Max got to work, the room grew quiet. The engineers, some of whom had been skeptical about the idea of working with a child, couldn't help but watch. "Did he just refactor that in under a minute?" one whispered. "Looks like it," another murmured, leaning closer. Max didn't notice their stares. His focus was laser-sharp as he debugged lines of code, occasionally glancing at the team's models to adapt his algorithm in real time. Julia, standing nearby, was both impressed and concerned. "He's good," she whispered to Elon, who had quietly entered the lab. Elon nodded, his gaze fixed on Max. "Better than good. But we'll see how he handles pressure." As the day went on, Max encountered his first roadblock. A section of Tesla's proprietary system clashed with his algorithm, creating a series of cascading errors. For the first time, Max hesitated, staring at the lines of red error messages scrolling across the screen. "What's wrong?" Julia asked, stepping closer. Max frowned, biting his lip. "It's not working the way I thought it would. I need to think." The engineers exchanged glances. One muttered under his breath, "I knew this was a bad idea." Max's small hands clenched into fists, but before he could spiral, Julia knelt beside him. "Hey," she said softly, "everyone hits roadblocks, even the best of us. Take a breath. Let's look at it together." Max exhaled shakily and nodded. Julia pulled up a chair, and together they reviewed the issue. Slowly, the tension eased as Max explained his logic, and Julia offered guidance where needed. "I've got it," Max exclaimed after half an hour, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The error messages disappeared, replaced by a clean, optimized output. The engineers erupted into applause, and Julia ruffled Max's hair. "See? Told you you'd figure it out." Later that evening, Laura sat with Max in the lounge area, watching him scribble new ideas into a notebook. "You had a pretty big moment in there," she said. "How'd it feel?" Max grinned, his excitement undimmed by the day's challenges. "It was amazing, Mom. It's like solving puzzles, but the puzzles are huge, and they actually matter." Laura smiled but remained quiet. She was proud beyond words, but couldn't shake the lingering worry about the pressures Max was facing. Before they left for the day, Elon called Max and Laura into his office. "Max," Elon began, "today you proved you belong here. But this isn't just about your talent. It's about how you handle the tough moments, too. Remember that." Max nodded solemnly. "And Laura," Elon continued, turning to her, "I want you to know that Max isn't alone in this. We're here to support him, and you, every step of the way." Laura nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Thank you, Mr. Musk." As they left the office, Max walked with a spring in his step, already talking about what he wanted to try next. Laura followed, her pride mingling with a sense of cautious optimism. For better or worse, they were now part of something extraordinary. Max's second day at Tesla began with the kind of enthusiasm only a 6-year-old could muster. He raced into the innovation lab, ready to tackle new challenges. The team had prepared a complex assignment, optimizing Tesla's predictive energy modeling for urban grids. Julia Martinez greeted him with a warm smile. "All right, Max, today's task is a tough one. It'll take focus and patience. Think you're up for it?" Max's eyes sparkled. "Let's do it." For hours, Max worked alongside the team. At first, the progress was smooth. His algorithm's predictive capabilities were more advanced than anything the engineers had seen, and they marveled at his ability to explain the intricate logic behind his ideas. But as the team moved deeper into testing, new complications emerged. Real-world data often introduced chaos, variables that didn't follow the neat patterns of theory. Max's algorithm struggled to adapt, creating inconsistencies in the energy predictions. Frustration began to creep into the room. "Max, you need to account for these anomalies," one engineer said, his tone bordering on impatient. "I know," Max replied, his small hands gripping the edge of the desk. "I just need to figure out how." The pressure was mounting. For the first time, Max found himself at odds with his team. Their tone wasn't hostile, but it was clear they were questioning whether his genius was enough to handle the messy realities of large-scale systems. During lunch, Laura joined Max in the cafeteria. She noticed his normally cheerful demeanor was subdued. "Hey, champ, what's on your mind?" she asked, nudging his juice box toward him. Max sighed. "It's harder than I thought, Mom. I keep making mistakes, and they're starting to think I can't do it." Laura leaned closer, her voice gentle. "Max, even the smartest people in the world don't get everything right on the first try. Mistakes aren't failures. They're how you learn. Just keep at it, okay?" Max nodded, her words rekindling a flicker of determination. Back in the lab, Max approached Julia. "Can I try something different?" Julia raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" Max hesitated, then gestured to the whiteboard. "I think the problem isn't the algorithm itself. It's how the data flows into it. If we filter the input before it reaches the algorithm, we might eliminate the anomalies." The engineers exchanged skeptical glances. "That's a huge shift in approach," one of them said. "It's also risky," added another. Julia studied Max's face, seeing both the confidence and vulnerability behind his suggestion. Finally, she nodded. "Let's try it." The room was silent as Max implemented his idea. Everyone watched as the filtered data began to flow through the system. Slowly but surely, the errors diminished, replaced by accurate predictions. "It's working," Julia said, her voice filled with disbelief and admiration. Max turned to the team, a shy but proud smile spreading across his face. "Told you it would work." The room erupted in applause. Even the skeptical engineers couldn't hide their respect. That evening, as Laura and Max drove home, Max was back to his animated self, chattering about new ideas he wanted to try. "You were right, Mom," he said suddenly. "About what?" "Mistakes. They really do help you learn." Laura smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "And you're learning faster than anyone I know, Max." For all the challenges the day had brought, it ended with a renewed sense of purpose. Max wasn't just proving his brilliance, he was proving his resilience. And for Laura, that was the most extraordinary thing of all. The buzz about Max spread through Tesla faster than anyone anticipated. Engineers who hadn't yet met him were hearing about the 6-year-old genius who had optimized a system their brightest minds had struggled with. His accomplishments even caught the attention of Tesla's PR team, who floated the idea of featuring Max in an upcoming press release. Elon Musk called Laura into his office to discuss it. "Ms. Anderson, I want to be upfront," Elon began. "Max's story is remarkable. The world would be fascinated by what he's doing here, and frankly, it could inspire a lot of young minds. But I also understand your concerns about him being so young." Laura hesitated, her protective instincts kicking in. "I appreciate that, Mr. Musk, but I'm not sure Max is ready for that kind of attention. He's still just a kid." "Of course," Elon replied. "This isn't about exploiting him. It's about celebrating his achievements. We'd let you and Max decide how much to share." Laura nodded, but left the meeting unsure. When she brought up the idea at home, Max's reaction was immediate. "Mom, I want to do it. Imagine how many kids might get into coding if they see what I'm doing." Laura studied her son's eager face. "It's a lot of pressure, Max. People will have opinions about you, some good, some not so good." "I don't care about that," Max said earnestly. "I just want to show people what's possible." Laura sighed, realizing there was no stopping him. "Okay, but we'll set some boundaries. Deal?" "Deal." The following week, a film crew arrived at Tesla to document Max's story. Cameras followed him as he worked in the innovation lab, explaining his ideas with the confidence of someone far older. Laura stayed close, offering encouragement between takes. During the interview portion, a journalist asked Max, "What's it like being so young and working on such big problems?" Max grinned. "It's like solving puzzles. The harder they are, the more fun I have." "And what do you want to be when you grow up?" "I don't know yet," Max admitted, shrugging. "But I do know I want to make the world better. Like Mr. Musk." The journalist turned to Laura. "What's it like raising a prodigy?" Laura chuckled nervously. "It's an adventure. Max keeps me on my toes, but at the end of the day, he's just a kid who loves what he does." The story aired the following week, going viral almost instantly. Max became an overnight sensation, with headlines like, "Meet the 6-year-old changing the future of energy," and "Child prodigy joins Tesla's elite team." The public's reaction was a mix of admiration and skepticism. While many were inspired by Max's story, others questioned the ethics of involving a child in such high-stakes work. At home, Max was oblivious to the controversy. He was too busy responding to emails from kids around the world asking how they could learn to code. Laura, on the other hand, felt the pressure mounting. As much as she wanted to shield Max from the negativity, she knew they couldn't ignore it. One evening, Max noticed Laura staring at her phone, her brow furrowed. "Mom, what's wrong?" "It's nothing, sweetheart," Laura said quickly, but Max wasn't convinced. "Is it about me?" he asked, his tone serious. Laura hesitated before nodding. "Some people think you're too young to be doing this. They're worried about you." Max frowned. "Why would they worry? I love what I'm doing." "They don't know you like I do," Laura said gently. "And sometimes, people are afraid of things they don't understand." Max thought for a moment. "Then I'll just keep showing them what I can do. Maybe they'll understand someday." Laura smiled, marveling at her son's resilience. "Maybe they will, Max." Though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear. Max was ready to face it head-on, no matter what challenges came his way. The morning after Max's story went viral, Laura woke to dozens of notifications on her phone. Social media was buzzing with comments, articles, and debates about Max's role at Tesla. While much of the reaction was positive, celebrating Max as a symbol of youthful brilliance, a growing wave of criticism cast a shadow over their excitement. Phrases like exploitation of a child, let kids be kids, and too much pressure too soon appeared in headlines and comment sections. Laura sighed deeply as she read through the flood of opinions. She had prepared herself for some negativity, but the sheer volume was overwhelming. At Tesla, Max was blissfully unaware of the brewing controversy. He had a new task, enhancing energy efficiency in Tesla's Powerwall systems. The lab was his sanctuary, a place where the noise of the outside world couldn't reach him. But the team couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. Julia Martinez called a quick meeting with Laura and Elon. "Elon, we need to address this," Julia said, gesturing to a tablet displaying a critical op-ed. "The public perception is shifting. We're getting emails questioning our ethics, and some employees are starting to feel uneasy." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "I understand the concern, but let's not lose sight of why Max is here. His work speaks for itself." Laura spoke up, her voice firm despite the tension. "Max loves what he's doing. This isn't something I pushed him into. But I'm also his mom, and I won't let him get hurt by all this." Elon looked at her, his expression serious. "We'll issue a statement. Something that explains Max's role and highlights the safeguards we've put in place. But Laura, if at any point you feel this is too much, say the word. We'll make adjustments." That evening, Elon posted a personal message on Tesla's social media accounts. "Max is an extraordinary young talent whose passion for innovation is inspiring to all of us at Tesla. We are committed to providing him with a supportive environment where he can learn and grow at his own pace, with his family's guidance every step of the way. Let's celebrate his achievements and remember that behind every genius is a kid with a dream." The post garnered millions of views, with a mix of supportive and skeptical comments. At home, Laura decided it was time to have an honest conversation with Max about the growing backlash. "Max, people are talking about you," she began carefully. "Not just the good things. Some people think you're too young to be doing all this. Max looked confused. But why? I'm not doing anything wrong. I know, sweetheart. But some people think kids should just play and not worry about big things like work. Max thought for a moment. Mom, I still play. I just play with code instead of toys. Is that bad? Laura smiled softly. No, it's not bad. But some people don't understand that. And that's okay. Max hesitated. Do you think I should stop? Laura's heart ached at the question. She knelt down, placing her hands on his shoulders. Max, I think you should keep doing what makes you happy. But we have to be smart about it, okay? If it ever feels like too much, you tell me. Max nodded, his expression serious. I will, Mom. But I don't want to stop. I want to keep making cool stuff. The next day, Max returned to the lab with renewed focus. Julia had set up a smaller project for him, something less intensive to give him a breather. Still, the atmosphere in the lab was different. The engineers were quieter, their conversations more cautious. Max noticed, but chose not to let it bother him. He worked steadily, determined to prove that he belonged. By the end of the day, Max had completed his project, a minor but meaningful improvement to Tesla's battery monitoring system. Julia reviewed his work and smiled. Well done, Max, she said, giving him a fist bump. Max beamed, his confidence unwavering. That night, Laura watched Max as he fell asleep, his notebook still clutched in his hands. She felt a mix of pride and worry, knowing the world's spotlight wasn't going to dim anytime soon. For now, though, Max was happy, and that was enough. The fallout from Max's viral fame wasn't just limited to public opinion. It also sparked reactions from the tech world. Rival companies and skeptics began dissecting his achievements, with some claiming Tesla's portrayal of him was exaggerated. One voice, in particular, rose above the rest, Dr. Leonard Crane, a renowned AI specialist and frequent critic of Tesla. During a televised panel, he openly questioned the legitimacy of Max's contributions. It's hard to believe a 6-year-old, no matter how gifted, is significantly contributing to Tesla's advancements, Dr. Crane declared. It feels more like a PR stunt than a true innovation story. The clip spread quickly, stirring heated debates online. At Tesla, the atmosphere grew tense. Julia Martinez called an impromptu meeting with Elon and Laura. Elon, this is becoming a problem, Julia said, pacing the room. Crane's comments are being taken seriously by some of our investors. They're questioning whether we're putting too much emphasis on Max. Elon leaned back in his chair, his expression calm but focused. Let them question. The best way to silence critics is to deliver results. Laura looked uneasy. Max doesn't know about any of this yet, does he? No, Julia replied. And I think it's better to keep it that way for now. He doesn't need that pressure. Later that day, Laura gently broached the subject with Max, omitting the harsher criticisms. Max, some people don't believe you're really doing all this work, she said carefully. They think Tesla might be exaggerating. Max frowned. But why? Can't they just look at what I've done? Laura smiled. Some people need more convincing. But don't worry about them, okay? Just keep doing your best. Max nodded, though the doubt lingered in his eyes. The following week, Elon gathered the team, including Max, for an exciting announcement. We've been invited to showcase our latest advancements at the Global Tech Summit in San Francisco, Elon said, his tone electric with enthusiasm. Max, I want you to present your work alongside the team. The room buzzed with murmurs. Max's eyes widened. Me? Really? Really, Elon said with a grin. If people want proof, let's give it to them. But only if you're comfortable with it. Max thought for a moment, then nodded. I want to do it. The days leading up to the summit were a whirlwind of preparation. Max worked tirelessly with Julia and the team to refine his presentation. They decided to highlight his optimization of Tesla's energy models and his recent improvements to the battery monitoring system. Laura watched proudly as Max rehearsed his speech at home, his confidence growing with each practice session. You're going to blow them away, she said, ruffling his hair. On the day of the summit, the hall was packed with industry leaders, journalists, and skeptics, including Dr. Leonard Crane. Max felt a flutter of nerves as he stepped onto the stage beside Julia. Julia began with an overview of Tesla's projects before introducing Max. And now, I'd like to bring up one of the brightest minds I've ever had the pleasure of working with, Max Anderson. The audience erupted into applause as Max took the microphone. "Hi, everyone," Max began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "I'm Max, and I've been working on making Tesla's energy system smarter." He launched into his presentation, explaining his algorithms with clarity and passion. He even used playful metaphors to simplify complex concepts, earning laughs and nods from the audience. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment before breaking into thunderous applause. During the Q&A session, Dr. Crane raised his hand. "Max, I admit I've been skeptical about your involvement at Tesla, but I'd like to ask, do you truly understand the implications of the work you're doing? Or is this just a game to you?" Max paused, his gaze steady. "It's not a game," he said firmly. "I know my work helps make energy cleaner and smarter. That means less pollution and more power for people who need it. I think that's pretty important." The room erupted again, this time with cheers. After the presentation, Laura hugged Max tightly. "You were incredible up there," she said, tears in her eyes. Max grinned. "I just told the truth, Mom." Even Dr. Crane approached them, offering a reluctant handshake. "You've proven me wrong, young man. Keep up the good work," he said, a hint of respect in his tone. As they left the summit, Max felt a new sense of confidence. For the first time, he realized his work wasn't just about solving puzzles. It was about changing minds and making a difference. The Global Tech Summit marked a turning point for Max. The reactions from the event were overwhelmingly positive, but it wasn't just the applause that stood out. It was the ripple effect of his presentation. Tesla's stock prices saw a significant jump in the days that followed, with many investors praising the company's forward-thinking approach, driven in part by its youngest contributor. Max's name appeared in articles alongside Elon Musk's, and he became a symbol of the next generation of innovators. But as the positive attention grew, so did the pressure. Max's inbox was flooded with requests for interviews, speaking engagements, and collaboration offers from tech firms eager to capitalize on his newfound fame. Laura found herself juggling not only Max's schedule but also her own feelings of uncertainty. She had always known her son was exceptional, but seeing him thrust into the spotlight so quickly was overwhelming. She wondered how much longer Max would remain untouched by the complexities of fame, and if he was truly prepared for what was to come. At Tesla, the pressure was mounting as well. Julia Martinez called a meeting with Elon to discuss Max's future role. "Elon, it's clear Max is the real deal," Julia said, pacing in front of the large screen displaying the latest figures. "But we need to ensure that his talents are nurtured without overwhelming him. His work with the energy system is already having a noticeable impact, but we have to be careful about how much we push him." Elon nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "I agree. We don't want to burn him out. But we also can't ignore the fact that Max is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. The world wants more from him, and Tesla's position in the industry could be even more formidable with his contributions." Laura's voice suddenly cut through the room as she entered the meeting. "That's exactly what I'm worried about." The team turned to her in surprise. "Laura, we've always said that Max's happiness comes first," Elon said, looking apologetic. "We're not pushing him into anything." "I understand that," Laura said firmly, "but you don't see the constant stream of requests coming through our inboxes. Max isn't just an employee at Tesla anymore. He's become an icon, and icons are expected to keep delivering. I don't want him to lose sight of the joy he finds in his work." Julia spoke gently. "We'll make sure he doesn't. But it's also important that we don't shy away from opportunities to support him. We're not asking him to solve every problem at once." Laura paused, considering her options. "Maybe we can set clear boundaries," she suggested. "Let Max continue with the work he's passionate about, but we need to control the outside distractions. He's still a child, after all." Elon looked at Laura with understanding. "Agreed. Let's slow things down and reassess." Back at home, Max was oblivious to the tension in the air. He was busy experimenting with new ideas for Tesla's solar grid systems, his mind constantly buzzing with possibilities. But Laura noticed the subtle changes in his behavior. He was starting to seem more fatigued, his playful energy replaced by moments of quiet contemplation. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Max pushed his plate aside, looking distant. "Mom, do you think I'm doing too much?" he asked suddenly, his voice uncharacteristically serious. Laura's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "I mean, with all the interviews and people talking about me," Max said, fidgeting with his napkin. "I want to keep helping Tesla, but sometimes it feels like there's so much pressure to do more. I don't know if I can keep up." Laura put her fork down and reached for Max's hand. "Max, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. The people who care about you want you to be happy, not stressed." Max nodded, a small smile creeping across his face. "I like solving problems, but I think I need more time to just be me." Laura squeezed his hand, proud of his maturity. "We'll figure it out together, okay?" The next day, Laura called Elon to discuss Max's growing need for balance. "I think Max is starting to feel the weight of everything," she said. "He loves his work, but it's clear that he needs more space to just be a kid. I think we need to scale back on some of the outside pressures." Elon listened intently. "You're absolutely right, Laura. We don't want to burn him out. We'll adjust his schedule and focus on the things he loves without overwhelming him. Let's give him some breathing room." As the weeks passed, Tesla made adjustments to Max's schedule. The external pressures began to fade as Max focused more on his work in the lab, away from the media spotlight. But despite the challenges, Max's passion for innovation never wavered. He continued to push the boundaries of what was possible, quietly transforming the future of energy while learning to navigate the complex world around him. One evening, after a particularly challenging project, Max turned to his mom with a satisfied grin. "I think I cracked it," he said, holding up his latest work. "I made the energy system even smarter." Laura looked at her son, a mixture of pride and relief in her heart. "That's amazing, Max. You're doing great." Max beamed, his eyes alight with the same wonder they had when he first began coding. He didn't need the world to recognize his genius. As long as he had the chance to make a difference, that was all that mattered. Max's life had settled into a new rhythm. Tesla had scaled back his external engagements, and he was allowed to focus on his work at his own pace. He spent hours tinkering with algorithms, improving Tesla's systems, and experimenting with new energy ideas. The lab was still his sanctuary, and it was here that Max felt truly alive. Yet, the world hadn't forgotten about him. Every now and then, a new headline would appear, usually praising his achievements or speculating on his future. But Max was too immersed in his projects to pay much attention to the press. One morning, as Max arrived at the Tesla headquarters, he found something unexpected waiting for him. A letter from NASA. The letter was simple, professional, and unmistakable. NASA wanted Max's expertise. They were working on a new project to develop AI systems for future space missions, and were interested in Max's work on Tesla's energy solutions and autonomous systems. The letter invited him to collaborate, offering a unique opportunity for a young genius like Max. Max read the letter several times, his excitement building. He couldn't wait to share it with Laura. But as he looked around the lab, a question lingered in his mind. Was he ready for this next step? Later that afternoon, Max sat down with Laura at their kitchen table, the letter spread out in front of them. He watched as she read through it, her brow furrowing in thought. "Max, this is incredible," she said, looking up at him. "NASA wants you to help with their space program. This is huge." "I know," Max replied, his voice bubbling with excitement. "I can't believe it. But, do you think I should do it? I mean, it's a lot to take on." Laura paused, considering. "Well, you've always been driven by curiosity, Max. You've wanted to know what's beyond the stars since you were little. This might be an opportunity to push your boundaries in a whole new way. But we'll need to think about it carefully. There's a lot involved." Max nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the decision. It wasn't just about space. It was about stepping into a whole new world of challenges, expectations, and responsibilities. NASA was one of the most prestigious organizations in the world, and they wanted him. He couldn't help but wonder if he was truly prepared for what that meant. "I love working with Tesla, Mom," Max said, his voice quieter now. "But space sounds so exciting. What if I can't do both?" Laura placed her hand on his. We don't have to decide right now. Let's take our time and think it through. You've already made such a difference at Tesla, and that's not something we want to lose sight of. But space is a dream of yours, isn't it? Max smiled, his eyes lighting up. Yeah. I've always wondered what it would be like to be part of something that takes humanity to the stars. Over the next few days, Max and Laura discussed the offer extensively. They weighed the pros and cons, and Laura sought advice from the Tesla team, who were supportive of whatever Max decided. They made it clear that they would continue to support him in whichever direction he chose. Elon also weighed in, offering his thoughts. Max, I'm going to be honest with you, Elon said one afternoon as they sat in his office. NASA's offer is a great opportunity, and I think you could bring something truly unique to their projects. But it's important to remember that this is a big leap. Whatever you choose, you'll always have a place here at Tesla. We're proud of what you've done, and we want to see you grow. Max nodded, feeling reassured. Elon's support was something he valued deeply. Still, the decision weighed heavily on him. After much contemplation, Max made his choice. He wasn't ready to leave Tesla. Not yet. There was still so much he wanted to do, so many ideas he hadn't yet explored. But he also knew that the chance to work with NASA could be the next great adventure of his life. Max called NASA to inform them of his decision. I'm honored by the offer, but I think I'm not ready to leave my work with Tesla just yet, he said. I'd love to keep in touch and explore ways we can collaborate in the future. The NASA representative expressed understanding and gratitude, assuring Max that they would always be open to future opportunities. That night, Max sat with Laura, feeling a sense of relief. The weight of the decision had lifted, and he was content with the path he had chosen. But as he looked out the window at the stars, he knew that one day, the world beyond Earth would call to him again. For now, though, Max's heart was at peace. He had made his mark on the world of energy, and he was just getting started. Whatever came next, he was ready. Mom, Max said, turning to her with a thoughtful look, I think I'm going to change the world. I don't know how yet, but I will. Laura smiled, her heart swelling with pride. I know you will, Max, whatever you decide. I believe in you. And with that, Max knew that his journey had only just begun. The future, filled with possibilities, lay ahead of him, one step at a time. Max's decision to stay at Tesla, at least for the time being, was met with a wave of support from his family and the company. Though his thoughts occasionally drifted toward space, the challenges on Earth still seemed vast and fascinating. Every day brought new opportunities to push the boundaries of what he could accomplish. At Tesla, Max's work on the energy systems began to gain even more attention. His innovations in solar energy storage and electric vehicle efficiency were starting to be recognized as breakthrough solutions. Max had a way of simplifying complex problems, finding elegant solutions that were both efficient and impactful. One evening, as Max worked late in the lab, he received an unexpected message. It was from an old friend, Leo, a fellow child prodigy who had worked with Max on a few coding projects in the past. Hey Max, it's Leo. I've got an idea I think you'll love. Let's meet up. Max grinned and quickly typed a response. Sure. When and where? The next weekend, Max and Leo met at a local cafe. Leo was excited, his usual energetic self. I've been thinking about something, Leo began, his eyes lighting up. What if we could build a new kind of technology? Something that combines both artificial intelligence and renewable energy to create a fully autonomous, self-sustaining home. Max's eyes widened. You mean like a smart home that runs entirely on renewable energy without needing any external power sources? Exactly, Leo said, leaning forward. Imagine a house that's not just smart in terms of controlling lights, temperature, and security, but also fully optimized to generate and store its own energy, no need for a grid. I think we could revolutionize the way people think about living sustainably. Max sat back, considering the idea. It would have to be more than just solar panels and batteries. It would need AI to manage the energy flow, anticipate energy needs, and adjust in real time. Exactly, Leo said again, bouncing in his seat. We could make it self-learning. The more it interacts with its environment, the better it becomes at predicting and optimizing energy use. It could be the next step in energy efficiency. Max's mind was already whirring with ideas. He knew this was something bigger than anything they'd tackled before. The idea of a truly self-sustaining home was a bold step forward, not just in terms of energy but in changing the way people lived. "I'm in," Max said. "Let's do it." The two of them spent the next few months developing their idea. They called it Ecosphere, a completely autonomous home powered by solar energy, integrated with AI that learned from the environment to optimize energy use. The home would not only power itself but also be able to share excess energy with nearby homes, creating a small, localized grid of self-sustaining units. As they worked, Max's role was clear. He handled the AI system, coding the algorithms that would learn from the house's energy patterns and optimize them in real time. Leo worked on the hardware, creating a new generation of solar panels and battery storage systems that would be more efficient and durable than anything currently available. They hit several roadblocks along the way, particularly with the AI's ability to anticipate energy needs. Max spent countless hours testing, tweaking, and refining his algorithms. But as they made progress, they realized something. Ecosphere wasn't just about creating a sustainable home. It was about showing people a new way of thinking. By integrating AI and renewable energy in such a seamless way, Max and Leo were proving that sustainability didn't have to come at the expense of convenience or comfort. Ecosphere could be a glimpse into the future, a world where energy efficiency and smart living went hand in hand. As Max and Leo finalized their prototype, word began to spread. Tesla, always on the lookout for new innovations, took an interest in their project. Julia Martinez, who had become a mentor to Max, arranged a meeting with Elon Musk to present the prototype. The day of the meeting, Max was nervous. This wasn't just a product or a small innovation. It was a vision for the future. But he was determined to show Elon and the Tesla team what he and Leo had created. The room was filled with Tesla executives, engineers, and Elon himself. Max and Leo stood in front of a large screen, ready to showcase their work. Max took a deep breath and began. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ecosphere, the next step in sustainable living. It's a fully autonomous home powered by renewable energy and managed by AI. What makes it unique is its ability to learn from the environment, anticipate energy needs, and optimize its performance. It's more than just a smart home. It's a self-sustaining system." Max clicked a button, and the screen lit up with a simulation of Ecosphere in action. The AI was adjusting the house's energy usage based on the weather, the time of day, and even the energy habits of the people inside. The audience watched, captivated, as the home effortlessly managed its own energy, storing excess power and adjusting in real time. Elon leaned forward, his expression intrigued. "This is impressive," he said. "You've taken Tesla's vision of energy efficiency and brought it to a whole new level. This could change the way people live. What do you need to bring this to life?" Max felt a surge of excitement. "We need investment and support to build a larger-scale prototype. We're confident in the potential, but we'll need resources to make it a reality." Elon nodded. "Consider it done. Let's talk about how we can integrate this into Tesla's future." As the meeting concluded, Max and Leo exchanged wide-eyed glances. They had done it. Not only had they created something groundbreaking, but they had secured the support of one of the most influential companies in the world. Max left the meeting feeling a renewed sense of purpose. His dreams of changing the world through innovation were no longer just ideas. They were becoming reality. And as he walked out of the Tesla headquarters, Max knew that the future was wide open. With the support of Tesla, his ideas had the potential to transform the way people lived, making the world a more sustainable place, one home at a time. But there was still so much more to do, and Max was ready for the next challenge. The journey, he knew, was just beginning. Max's success with Ecosphere was just the beginning. With Elon Musk's backing, the project quickly gained momentum, and soon, Tesla's engineering teams were helping Max and Leo refine their prototype. What had started as a passion project in a small lab had turned into something that could potentially change the way the world consumed energy. Within a few months, the first large-scale prototype of Ecosphere was ready. Tesla's advanced manufacturing facilities were instrumental in bringing the design to life. They had used cutting-edge materials for the solar panels, battery storage, and energy management systems, making the home even more efficient than Max and Leo had originally envisioned. Max stood outside the first ecosphere home, now completed and ready for testing. It looked like something straight out of a futuristic movie. Sleek, clean lines, with solar panels seamlessly integrated into the structure, and windows designed to optimize natural lighting. A small group of engineers and Tesla executives, including Elon, had gathered for the big reveal. "All right, Max," Elon said, walking up to him with a grin. "Show us what it can do." Max smiled and stepped forward, ready to demonstrate. He tapped a few buttons on his tablet, and the ecosphere home sprang to life. The lights inside adjusted automatically to the natural light streaming through the windows. The temperature regulation system kicked in, balancing the indoor climate to a perfect 72 degrees Fahrenheit. As the sun started to set, the home's energy storage system began to charge, absorbing solar power to be used later. "It's all controlled by the AI," Max explained as the team observed. "The system learns from its environment and the habits of the people living in it, constantly adjusting to optimize energy usage. It also monitors external conditions, things like weather patterns, sunlight, and energy consumption, and adjusts accordingly. It's designed to be fully autonomous." Elon nodded, clearly impressed. "You've made something incredible here, Max. This could really be the future of sustainable living. It's not just about green energy anymore. It's about intelligent energy use, with homes that learn and adapt." As the evening progressed, the team toured the ecosphere home, analyzing every aspect of it. They tested the AI's learning capabilities, watching as it adjusted based on changing conditions. It was clear. Ecosphere was more than just a smart home. It was a blueprint for the future. The success of the ecosphere prototype soon drew widespread attention. Tesla's announcement of the project made headlines across the globe, with environmental organizations, tech companies, and governments eager to see how this innovation could help solve the world's energy crisis. Max's name became synonymous with the next generation of sustainable living, and his work was hailed as revolutionary. But with all the attention came new challenges. As the project moved forward, Max found himself faced with the pressure of leading something much larger than he had anticipated. Tesla wanted to scale ecosphere rapidly, with the goal of building thousands of these homes within the next few years. It was a daunting prospect, but Max was ready. One evening, as Max sat in his office, reviewing the plans for the next phase of the ecosphere rollout, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Laura. "Max, I have something important to talk to you about. Can you come home?" Max frowned, sensing that something was off. He quickly gathered his things and drove home. When Max arrived, Laura was waiting for him in the living room. She looked concerned, and for a moment, Max felt a knot form in his stomach. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, sitting down beside her. "I've been thinking," Laura began, her voice soft. "You've been working so hard lately. Tesla, ecosphere, all of it. It's incredible, Max. But I'm worried about you. You're so focused on your work that I'm not sure you're taking care of yourself." Max's heart sank. "I'm fine, Mom. Really. Everything's going well. We're making progress, and this is what I've always wanted." "I know, but you've been under a lot of pressure, and you haven't been spending as much time with the people who care about you. I just don't want you to lose sight of what matters most. It's not just about changing the world. It's about taking care of yourself, too." Max sat in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He had been so consumed by his work that he hadn't even realized how much time had passed, how much of his life had slipped away in the pursuit of his dream. "I didn't realize it had gotten that bad," he admitted quietly. "I've been so focused on making a difference that I've forgotten to take a step back." Laura smiled, placing her hand on his. "It's okay, Max. I know you're doing amazing things, but don't forget to live along the way." The next day, Max took a break from his usual routine. He spent time with Laura, enjoying a quiet afternoon. It was a reminder that life wasn't just about the work. It was about balance, about finding joy in the moments that made life meaningful. When Max returned to his work the following week, he did so with a new perspective. He was more focused, more balanced, and ready to take on the challenges ahead. He knew that building the future required not just intellect and innovation, but also the strength to pause and reflect. In the months that followed, the ecosphere project took off in a way Max had never imagined. Tesla began building homes across the world, and the success of the project sparked a new era in sustainable living. Max continued to lead the charge, but now, he made sure to carve out time for the things that mattered most: his family, his friends, and his own well-being. As he looked at the impact he was making on the world, Max realized something. The future he was building wasn't just about technology. It was about people, about giving them the tools to live better, more sustainable lives. And in the end, that was the true measure of success. The road ahead was still long, but Max knew one thing for sure. He was ready for whatever came next. As ecosphere homes began to rise in cities around the world, Max's vision of sustainable, intelligent living was starting to take shape on a global scale. Tesla's massive resources and influence gave the project the support it needed, and soon, it wasn't just an experimental prototype but a product that could be installed in neighborhoods across the globe. The revolution in sustainable living had begun. Max's life had become a whirlwind of meetings, presentations, and development. He was constantly on the phone with executives, engineers, and environmental leaders, all eager to discuss the impact of ecosphere. While the world marveled at what they had created, Max felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier with each passing day. One afternoon, while reviewing progress reports in his office, Max was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Elon, with a serious look on his face. "Got a minute?" Elon asked, stepping into the room. "Of course, what's up?" Max replied, looking up from his tablet. Elon leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "I've been thinking about the future of ecosphere. It's growing quickly, and we need to scale up even faster. But there's something else I want to discuss." Max raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I think ecosphere has potential beyond just homes," Elon said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I'm talking about cities. Whole, self-sustaining cities that use this technology. Imagine entire urban centers that are completely energy independent, powered by solar and managed by AI. Max felt his heart race. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying at the same time. "You want us to build a whole city? I mean, that's huge. We're talking about infrastructure, transportation, water management. It's not just about the homes anymore." "I know," Elon said with a grin, "but if anyone can do it, it's you. The technology is already there. We just need to expand it, take ecosphere and integrate it into a much larger system." Max's mind raced. A city powered entirely by renewable energy and managed by AI? It was a monumental task, but if anyone could pull it off, it was Tesla and ecosphere. The challenge was unlike anything he had faced before, but the potential to make a global impact was undeniable. "I'm in," Max said, his voice steady. "Let's build the future." The next few months were a blur. Max and Elon assembled a team of the best minds in AI, urban planning, and engineering. Their goal was clear: create a self-sustaining city that was entirely powered by renewable energy, with every aspect of life, from transportation to water management, integrated into the ecosphere system. They started by designing the city's core infrastructure. Every building, street, and utility would be optimized to run on solar power, and the AI would ensure that energy consumption was always balanced. Waste management would be revolutionized, turning waste into reusable energy, and smart transportation systems would eliminate the need for gas-powered vehicles. Max was once again immersed in the project, working alongside the team to develop the necessary software and systems to integrate all of these aspects into one harmonious unit. It was an overwhelming task, but Max found himself more determined than ever. This was a chance to create something that could change the world on a scale that no one had ever imagined. But as the project gained momentum, so did the pressure. Max found himself staying up late into the night, coding, testing, and refining systems. The stress was beginning to take its toll. One evening, as he stared at his screen, struggling to solve a particularly tricky problem, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Laura. "Max, we need to talk. Please come home." Max sighed. He had been so absorbed in the project that he hadn't realized how much time had passed since he last spent quality time with her. He knew it was time to step back, even just for a few hours. At home, Laura was waiting for him with a warm smile, but there was a concern in her eyes. They sat down in the living room, and Max could see that she had been thinking deeply. "Max," she began, "I know you're working on something huge, something that could change the world. But I'm worried about you. You're burning yourself out. Max frowned, running a hand through his hair. I don't have time to slow down, Laura. We're building a city. I can't afford to step back now. I get it, she said softly, but you can't keep running on empty. You've always pushed yourself, but this isn't just about ecosphere anymore. It's about your health, your future, and everything you've worked for. Don't let the work consume you. Max sat in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He had been so focused on the larger picture that he had lost sight of the fact that he was still just a person, someone who needed rest, support, and balance in his life. I don't know if I can just stop, he admitted. I'm so close to something incredible, but I don't want to lose myself in it. Laura smiled gently. You don't have to stop. You just need to find balance. The world needs you at your best, not just your smartest. The next day, Max made a decision. He couldn't stop the work on Ecosphere, but he could start taking care of himself along the way. He began carving out time for breaks, for walks, for moments where he could simply breathe. Laura had reminded him that the journey was just as important as the destination. With renewed focus, Max dove back into the project. The team continued their work on the city, and Max worked on refining the software to handle the complex systems that would make the city run seamlessly. He took time to step back when needed, and slowly but surely, Ecosphere City began to take shape. Months later, Max stood on the rooftop of the first completed Ecosphere City, looking out over the sprawling, self-sustaining urban center. The city was a testament to what could be accomplished when technology, innovation, and sustainability were brought together. Congratulations, Max, Elon said, standing beside him. You've done it. You've built something that can change the world. Max looked around, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just about the city. It was about the lives it would change, the people who would live in harmony with the environment, the energy they would save, and the future they were shaping. It's just the beginning, Max said, his eyes alight with excitement. The future is full of possibilities. And as he stood there, surrounded by the city that would pave the way for generations to come, Max knew that his journey was far from over. The world was ready for the next step, and he was ready to lead the charge. The future was now. Max stood at the podium, addressing a packed room of global leaders, investors, and environmental advocates. The world had been watching Ecosphere grow from an ambitious idea into a groundbreaking project, and today, they were about to hear the next big step in the revolution of sustainable living. His speech was being broadcast live across continents, and the world's attention was on him. Today, Max began, his voice steady. We stand on the precipice of a new era, an era where technology, energy, and sustainability don't just coexist, they thrive together. Ecosphere City is not just a model for the future. It's proof that we can build a world that works for everyone. He paused, letting the words sink in. This was the culmination of years of hard work, collaboration, and sacrifice, and it was about to change everything. With Ecosphere, we've created something that adapts to the needs of its residents, all while minimizing our impact on the planet. From solar-powered homes to autonomous energy management systems, we've integrated every facet of modern life into one seamless, sustainable ecosystem. And it's not just about the homes. We're talking about entire cities that run on clean energy and AI, powered by data and designed for people. The audience was captivated. Max could see their rapt attention, their interest piqued by the vision he was laying out. There was a buzz in the air, a sense of collective excitement about the possibilities. As Max continued his presentation, the room filled with nods of agreement and murmurs of approval. This was more than just a project. It was the dawn of a global movement. Since the success of Ecosphere City, Max and Elon had been in talks with governments worldwide, eager to replicate the model in different regions. The possibilities were endless, and the first step was spreading the concept globally. Governments, cities, and corporations were eager to integrate Ecosphere into their infrastructure. It wasn't just about sustainability anymore. It was about creating communities that were efficient, equitable, and ready for the challenges of the 21st century. As the speech wrapped up, Max concluded, "This is our chance to build something that will last, something that will stand the test of time and leave a legacy for future generations. Together, we can change the world." The applause that followed was deafening, and Max felt a surge of pride and relief wash over him. But as he stepped off the stage, his mind was already racing ahead. The work was far from over. Now that the world had seen what was possible, it was time to push even harder, to scale the project, to make it accessible to every corner of the globe. After the event, Max found himself in a quiet moment with Elon backstage. They exchanged a look, both of them knowing that this was just the beginning. "You did it, Max," Elon said, clapping him on the back. "This is the kind of innovation that will change everything. Now we just need to make sure we do it right, at scale." Max nodded, a serious expression crossing his face. "We need to make it work for everyone. This has to be about more than just technology. It has to be about people. The cities, the homes, the way people live in them. It all has to be accessible, affordable." Elon's eyes narrowed, and he smiled. "I have no doubt you'll make that happen. You've already proven you can take a crazy idea and turn it into reality." Max felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had spent so much time thinking about the technological aspects of ecosphere, but now, as the project expanded, it was becoming clear that the most important aspect of all was the people it would impact. Ecosphere wasn't just about homes or cities. It was about building communities that were sustainable, resilient, and connected. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, negotiations, and planning sessions. The global rollout of Ecosphere was becoming a reality, and Max found himself on a plane to various countries, meeting with officials and stakeholders, sharing the vision for the future of urban living. One particular stop took him to a remote region in Africa, where the government was eager to bring Ecosphere to an area that had long struggled with energy poverty. Max stood in a small village, surrounded by leaders and community members, as he talked about the potential for self-sustaining, solar-powered homes that could transform their way of life. "You have no idea how much this could change things for us," one of the elders said, his voice full of hope. "For years, we've struggled with energy shortages, and the cost of power is a heavy burden. But this could give us independence, a future where we're not reliant on outside sources for energy." Max felt a lump form in his throat as he realized just how profound the impact of Ecosphere could be. It wasn't just about solving the world's energy crisis. It was about empowering people, giving them the tools to take control of their own futures. Back in the US, Tesla began building a network of Ecosphere cities across the country. Major cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago started to implement smaller-scale Ecosphere systems, integrating them into existing neighborhoods. Max was involved in every step of the process, from design to implementation, ensuring that the AI systems in each home were optimized for the specific needs of each community. As the cities took shape, Max started to notice a shift in the way people interacted with their environments. There was a growing sense of community in the Ecosphere cities. People were no longer isolated in their homes, glued to screens and devices. Instead, they were interacting with each other, working together to solve common problems, from energy consumption to waste management. The AI systems, once considered simply a technological innovation, were now viewed as part of the community's fabric. They helped solve problems, but they also brought people together, creating a more connected and harmonious way of life. Max stood on the balcony of a newly completed Ecosphere home, looking out over the city. It was a warm evening, and he could hear the sounds of laughter and conversation drifting up from the streets below. The city was alive with energy, but it was a new kind of energy, one that was sustainable, efficient, and in harmony with the environment. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything they had accomplished. There was still much work to do, but the world was on the right path. Together, they had built something extraordinary, and this was just the beginning. As he looked out at the horizon, Max knew that the future was bright, not just for him or his team, but for the entire planet. The movement had begun, and nothing could stop it now. As the Ecosphere revolution continued to gain traction, not everything was as smooth as Max and his team had hoped. While the global expansion was seen as a monumental achievement, there were unexpected challenges that began to emerge. Ones that tested both the limits of the technology and the resilience of the people behind the project. Max had known that scaling the project to this extent would involve a learning curve, but he hadn't anticipated the social, political, and economic obstacles that would come into play. It wasn't just about the technical aspects anymore. It was about managing an ecosystem of communities, each with their own needs, desires, and resistance to change. One evening, Max sat in his office, reviewing reports from the latest city launches. While some cities embraced ecosphere wholeheartedly, others were struggling. In one case, a city in Europe had encountered significant issues with public perception. The integration of the AI-powered systems had led to concerns about privacy, with many residents afraid that they were being monitored too closely. Another city in Asia was having trouble with the energy grid, with solar panels not producing enough power during the rainy season. Max rubbed his temples. He had been so focused on the promise of ecosphere that he hadn't fully accounted for how people might react to living in a city controlled by AI. He wasn't alone in this realization. Elon had been quietly reviewing similar reports and had called for a meeting with Max and the project leads. As the team gathered around the conference table the next morning, Elon wasted no time in diving into the heart of the matter. "We knew scaling this would be tough," Elon began, his tone serious but thoughtful. "But it's clear now that we need to refine how we introduce ecosphere to the world. We've got to address concerns head-on, especially around privacy and the AI systems. We can't expect people to just embrace this without understanding how it works." Max nodded, absorbing Elon's words. "I've been so focused on the technology, I didn't realize how important trust would be. We need to make it clear that ecosphere is about empowering communities, not controlling them." "We're not just selling a product anymore," Elon added. "We're introducing a new way of life. And with that comes a lot of responsibility. We need to make sure people feel safe and confident in what we're offering." The team spent the next few weeks reworking the ecosphere model. They introduced new features to address privacy concerns, such as opt-in settings for AI monitoring and data sharing, ensuring that residents could have full control over what was collected and how it was used. They also refined the solar panels, developing an updated version that could store more energy during sunny days and distribute it efficiently during cloudy periods. Max also realized that they needed to be more transparent about the technology. Public education campaigns were launched to demystify the AI systems in the homes, explaining how they helped save energy, reduce waste, and improve quality of life without intruding on privacy. But the challenges didn't end there. In many cities, the transition to ecosphere wasn't as simple as replacing old homes with new ones. The cultural differences in how people interacted with technology meant that Max had to customize the rollout for each region. Some communities were more willing to adopt the changes, while others were deeply resistant to the shift. Max found himself on the ground in one such city in the Midwest. There had been a lot of pushback from the local population, especially in smaller towns where people were wary of technology. The idea of having AI manage their homes was met with suspicion. Max met with a local community leader, Sarah, who had become a vocal critic of ecosphere. She was well respected in the community and had a lot of influence. He had heard her concerns, but he needed to hear them directly from her. "I've heard all the promises, Max," Sarah said, sitting across from him at a small cafe. "But what happens if something goes wrong? What if the AI starts controlling more than it should? I'm all for innovation, but people in this town don't trust that something this powerful won't be abused." Max took a deep breath. It was a valid concern, and he needed to address it with honesty. "I understand your fears, Sarah," he said. "I know that introducing this kind of technology can feel overwhelming. But what I can promise you is that we've built ecosphere with transparency and control at its core. The AI doesn't control your life, it helps optimize it. And it's not some invisible force. It's something you can see, touch, and interact with. The whole system is designed to put people in control, not the other way around." Sarah looked at him skeptically. "But what if people don't want that kind of control? What if they don't want to be part of this smart world you're building?" Max leaned in, his voice steady. "That's the beauty of it, Sarah. Ecosphere isn't about forcing anyone to change. It's about giving them the tools to create a better future if they choose to. And if they don't want it, that's okay too. The system is flexible. It adapts to the needs of the people, not the other way around." After their conversation, Max spent several more days in the town, holding public meetings, answering questions, and addressing concerns. Slowly, he began to see the shift. People who had been initially skeptical started to understand that ecosphere wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It was customizable, designed to enhance their lives rather than disrupt them. By the end of the week, Max had made a breakthrough. While not everyone was fully on board, there was a growing sense of acceptance. People began to realize that their voices mattered in the creation of this new world. Back at the Tesla headquarters, Max and the team continued refining their strategy. They had learned valuable lessons about the importance of community engagement and education. Max was more determined than ever to make Ecosphere a true force for good, not just a technological marvel. But as the project expanded even further, Max knew that the challenges would only grow more complex. The future of Ecosphere was no longer just about building sustainable cities. It was about building trust, understanding, and lasting relationships with the people who would live in them. Max was ready for the next chapter. Because, despite all the hurdles they had faced, the potential of Ecosphere was still limitless. And with each new challenge, they were getting closer to the world he had always envisioned. As the Ecosphere cities continued to expand, Max found himself working harder than ever to manage the intricate web of partnerships that had formed around the project. What started as a bold idea had evolved into a global movement, and now, collaboration was key. The strength of Ecosphere wasn't just in the technology itself, but in the partnerships that were supporting it, from governments to private enterprises to local communities. One such partnership that had become pivotal was with a major international renewable energy company, SolarTech. Their advanced solar panel technology had been instrumental in scaling Ecosphere's energy systems, and now they were looking to expand their role even further. Max was scheduled to meet with SolarTech's CEO, Monica Reyes, to discuss the next phase of their collaboration. Max sat across from Monica at a sleek conference table in the high-rise headquarters of SolarTech in San Francisco. The city skyline stretched behind her, and the glass walls gave a panoramic view of the bay. Monica was an accomplished leader, known for her innovative approach to renewable energy, and she had been a critical ally in the development of Ecosphere. Her team had worked closely with Max's engineers to create solar systems that could power entire communities. "It's been an incredible journey, Max," Monica began, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "What we've done with Ecosphere is revolutionary, but I think we're just scratching the surface." Max nodded, sensing her eagerness. "I agree. The early success of the Ecosphere cities has been overwhelming, but the true potential is in scaling it globally. We need to make these systems more adaptable, affordable, and accessible to all kinds of communities." "That's exactly why I wanted to meet," Monica said. SolarTech has developed a new line of solar panels that are even more efficient and can be installed in a wider range of environments, including urban rooftops, rural areas, and even remote regions with minimal sunlight. "I think this is exactly what Ecosphere needs to truly become a global solution." Max's eyes lit up. This was the kind of partnership that could take Ecosphere to the next level. "That's huge. If we can integrate this new technology, we'll be able to extend Ecosphere into more diverse environments, even in places where access to sunlight isn't ideal." "How soon can we start testing it?" "We've already done preliminary tests with some smaller-scale prototypes," Monica explained. "If you're on board, we can move to pilot installations in a few key regions, Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of South America, where energy poverty is a major issue. These regions could really benefit from Ecosphere's adaptable systems." Max felt a surge of excitement. This was the kind of breakthrough that would make Ecosphere not just a luxury but a necessity in developing regions. "Let's move forward with it. We'll need to integrate these new solar panels into our next batch of Ecosphere cities." As the partnership with SolarTech took shape, Max began to see a shift in the way people viewed Ecosphere. It was no longer seen as an elite, tech-driven experiment. It was becoming a solution to some of the world's most pressing challenges. And it wasn't just about energy anymore. It was about creating sustainable, resilient communities that could thrive no matter where they were located. With the addition of SolarTech's new technology, Ecosphere began to take on new dimensions. The solar panels were more efficient, more adaptable, and more cost-effective. They were perfect for communities in remote areas where infrastructure was lacking, but also for urban environments where space and resources were limited. Meanwhile, back in the U.S., Ecosphere had been implemented in several mid-sized cities. In these urban areas, the impact was starting to be felt. With AI systems designed to optimize energy consumption, reduce waste, and improved transportation, the cities began to see measurable reductions in their carbon footprints. Traffic congestion, once a constant problem, had been significantly reduced by autonomous vehicles and smart traffic systems that adjusted in real time to the flow of traffic. One of the most impressive transformations was happening in New York City. The city, known for its dense population and bustling lifestyle, had been an early adopter of ecosphere's technology. With the addition of solar-powered buildings, self-sustaining energy systems, and autonomous vehicles, New York was starting to look like a glimpse of the future. Max had been closely involved in overseeing the changes. He visited the city regularly, meeting with local officials and residents to gauge their reactions. The results were undeniable. Residents reported a better quality of life, with lower energy bills, cleaner air, and less congestion. The city was more livable, more sustainable, and, perhaps most importantly, more connected. Max's success with ecosphere was attracting attention from global leaders. A conference in Paris, hosted by the United Nations, was set to discuss the future of sustainable cities, and Max had been invited to speak. This was his chance to present ecosphere on the world stage, to show how it was solving problems on a global scale. As Max stood before the audience in the Grand Hall of the Palais de Congrès, he felt a deep sense of responsibility. The eyes of the world were on him, and he knew that his words would have an impact. But more than that, he understood that this moment was about something bigger than him. It was about the future of the planet. "We are at a crossroads," Max began, his voice steady. "The choices we make in the next few decades will determine the future of our planet. Ecosphere is not just a vision for sustainable cities. It's a blueprint for how we can rebuild the way we live, work, and interact with our environment. By integrating technology with sustainability, we can create cities that are not only efficient but also resilient, cities that are built to withstand the challenges of climate change, resource depletion, and population growth." He paused, scanning the room. World leaders, CEOs, and environmental advocates were listening intently. He had their attention. "Together," he continued, "we have the power to create a world where technology and nature are not at odds with each other, but work in harmony. A world where cities are not just places to live, but places to thrive. This is the future I envision, and I believe we are on the path to making it a reality." The applause that followed was deafening. Max knew the world was ready for this change, but the journey was far from over. Back in the U.S., ecosphere was continuing to expand, and the impact was clear. But as the project grew, so did the challenges. Max understood that there would always be obstacles, technical, social, and political, that would need to be overcome. But he also knew that with every challenge came an opportunity to make the world a better place. The partnerships Max had forged with leaders like Monica Reyes at Solaritech and the ongoing commitment from the global community were the foundation upon which ecosphere would grow. And with every step forward, he knew that the world was becoming a little bit closer to the vision he had always dreamed of, a world where sustainability, technology, and human progress came together to create a better future for all. The road ahead was long, but Max was ready for it. Together, they were changing the world. As Max continued to oversee the rapid expansion of ecosphere, it became clear that their ambitious vision was gaining momentum. Every new city that adopted the system, every partnership that strengthened the project's foundation, felt like another step toward transforming the world into a place where technology and sustainability weren't just ideals, but practical, thriving realities. However, with every success came new challenges, and Max was starting to feel the weight of the responsibility. As ecosphere scaled, it attracted even more attention, both positive and negative. Critics, who had once dismissed the project as a lofty dream, were now beginning to raise concerns about the future of such widespread change. Could humanity truly adapt to living in such technologically advanced, AI-driven cities? And what would happen to traditional industries as more and more cities adopted ecosphere? Max was well aware that while the long-term impact of ecosphere was largely positive, there would inevitably be people who would resist change. Some felt threatened by the rise of AI, others by the economic shifts brought on by the new green technologies. The transition to a more sustainable world was a cultural as much as a technological revolution, and it was going to take time for many to fully embrace it. Max's schedule was packed as usual, but today, there was a meeting he couldn't afford to miss. It was a critical discussion with world leaders at the United Nations Climate Summit in Geneva, where he was slated to present a comprehensive report on the progress of ecosphere. This was an opportunity to showcase the power of global collaboration, and Max had prepared meticulously. As he entered the room, he was greeted by a sea of faces, heads of state, environmental advocates, and industry leaders who had all gathered to discuss the future of the planet. Max's speech was scheduled to be the highlight of the day, and he was determined to make it count. Standing at the podium, he took a deep breath. The room grew quiet. We've seen a dramatic shift in the way we live, work, and interact with the world, Max began, his voice calm but confident. Ecosphere was built with one simple idea in mind, that sustainability doesn't have to come at the cost of progress. And I'm proud to stand here today to tell you that we are already seeing the results. He paused to let the weight of his words sink in. He continued by showcasing statistics, drawing from the data collected from cities across the globe that had adopted ecosphere. Crime rates had dropped, pollution had decreased, energy consumption was down, and quality of life had improved. But this is just the beginning, Max said, his eyes sweeping across the room. We've shown that it's possible to create self-sustaining cities that benefit people, the planet, and the economy. But to truly change the world, we need to scale this further. We need to create a network of interconnected ecosphere cities, sharing knowledge, resources, and technology to tackle the climate crisis at a global level. He outlined a vision for a future where cities no longer fought for resources but instead collaborated on everything from energy production to disaster response. It was a radical idea, but Max had no doubts that it was the only way forward. After all, the interconnectedness of modern society was one of its greatest strengths. If cities could work together rather than in competition, the entire planet could benefit. The speech was met with a standing ovation, but, as expected, not all were fully convinced. There were murmurs of skepticism from some representatives, especially those from nations that were still reliant on traditional industries. Several countries had large coal and oil industries that were vital to their economies, and transitioning away from these sectors was a daunting prospect. After the speech, Max was approached by one such leader, a representative from a country with a significant fossil fuel industry. She looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "You've made a compelling argument, Max," she said. "But the reality is there are entire economies that depend on fossil fuels. The shift you're talking about would not only be costly, it could be catastrophic for millions of people who rely on these industries for their livelihoods." Max knew this would be one of the biggest obstacles to scaling ecosphere, the fear of job loss and economic instability. He had heard these concerns before, but he also knew that the world couldn't afford to ignore the environmental toll of continuing down the path of fossil fuels. "I understand your concerns," Max replied. "But here's the thing. The transition to clean energy doesn't have to mean economic collapse. In fact, it can create new opportunities. We've already seen this in the countries that have adopted ecosphere. The solar and green technologies we're using are creating new jobs in renewable energy, waste management, and sustainable infrastructure. And we're committed to making sure that as we scale ecosphere, we bring workers from traditional industries along for the ride." Max paused, letting the words settle. This isn't about replacing industries, it's about evolving them. And with global collaboration, we can ensure that no one is left behind. Despite some resistance, the conversation in Geneva marked a turning point. More nations began to see that the shift toward a sustainable, tech-driven future wasn't just about survival. It was about thriving in a new world. Over the next several months, partnerships began to form, with more countries agreeing to pilot ecosphere in their own cities. Back in the US, ecosphere continued to evolve. The tech was becoming more refined, and the infrastructure more robust. Max and his team worked tirelessly to adapt the system to different environments. They also focused on ensuring that the benefits of ecosphere were felt by everyone, not just the wealthy. As the project expanded, Max received an unexpected call, one that would push ecosphere into a new direction entirely. It was from the President of the United States. "We've been watching ecosphere closely," the president said, "and I think it's time we bring it to the entire country. What you've created here has the potential to reshape how we live, not just in our cities, but in our rural communities as well. We want to discuss what it would take to implement ecosphere nationwide. Max was stunned. This was the moment he had been working toward, the chance to scale ecosphere in a way that could truly change the fabric of American society. The next few years were filled with both triumphs and challenges. As ecosphere became a staple in cities and communities across the world, Max continued to refine the system, making it even more efficient, inclusive, and adaptable. He had built a legacy that would outlast him, a sustainable world where technology, humanity, and the planet existed in harmony. But as he looked out over the bustling cities, the thriving communities, and the sparkling energy-efficient buildings, Max couldn't help but wonder about the future. Would it last? Would future generations continue the work they had begun? For the first time, Max felt a sense of peace. The world was changing, and the seeds they had planted were starting to grow. And that was just the beginning. The world was changing, and ecosphere was at the center of that change. As cities adopted the system, and nations looked to it for their future, Max couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. What began as a humble project to create sustainable urban spaces had blossomed into a global movement. The impact of ecosphere was undeniable, reducing carbon footprints, generating clean energy, and fostering a new sense of community. But even as the world celebrated these successes, Max knew that the work was far from over. The most pressing question now was how to ensure that the progress wasn't just a fleeting moment but a lasting, sustainable transformation. The technologies that powered ecosphere were powerful, but their real strength came from the philosophy behind them: collaboration, inclusivity, and the belief that every person, no matter where they lived, deserved a better future. Back in the U.S., Max was meeting with his team to discuss the next phase of expansion. The president's office had officially greenlit ecosphere's nationwide rollout, and Max was determined to make it as inclusive as possible. His goal was to make sure no community, whether urban or rural, was left behind in the transition to a sustainable future. Let's focus on the rural areas next, Max said during a strategy meeting. These communities often get overlooked when we talk about sustainability. We need to ensure that ecosphere adapts to all types of environments. We're not just building cities, we're building a model for the future, one that works anywhere. One of the project leads, Maria, nodded in agreement. We've already made strides in more densely populated areas, but rural America is a whole different ball game. We'll need to focus on solar and wind energy, as well as decentralized water management systems. These communities are often spread out, and we need to make sure the infrastructure is both scalable and adaptable. Max smiled, proud of how his team had embraced the challenge. They had always been driven by a common purpose: to make the world better, not just for the few, but for everyone. They had seen firsthand how ecosphere could improve lives, whether it was in the heart of a city or in the quietest rural town. Meanwhile, globally, the momentum behind ecosphere was growing. Countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa, who had initially been hesitant about large-scale projects, were now approaching Max's team with new partnership proposals. The success stories coming out of cities like New York, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo were undeniable, and these nations were eager to replicate that success. Max knew that it wasn't just about selling a product or technology, it was about creating a shared vision of the future. He wasn't just offering smart homes or clean energy. He was offering a chance to reshape society, to make it more equitable, sustainable, and connected. One of the most exciting developments was in Africa. With the help of global NGOs and local governments, ecosphere had begun to take root in areas that had long struggled with unreliable energy, poor infrastructure, and limited access to clean water. The integration of solar power and water filtration systems was having an immediate and positive impact on communities that had never had reliable access to energy before. In rural areas of Kenya, farmers were using ecosphere's technology to optimize irrigation and reduce water waste. In South Africa, remote villages were becoming self-sustaining through solar-powered energy grids. And in the dense, bustling cities of Lagos and Nairobi, ecosphere was helping reduce air pollution and improve waste management. As ecosphere expanded, so did the public's understanding of what it meant to live sustainably. Max had always envisioned a world where technology wasn't just about convenience, but about connection. The connection between people, the planet, and the resources that sustain them. Ecosphere wasn't just a solution for the problems of today. It was a roadmap for the challenges of tomorrow. But as the world embraced the change, there were still hurdles to overcome. While many were eager to transition to cleaner energy and sustainable practices, some industries, particularly fossil fuels, were reluctant to adapt. Even though ecosphere had been widely embraced by governments and communities, the global economy was still heavily reliant on oil, coal, and natural gas. Max was well aware of the resistance. The pressure to maintain the status quo was immense, and some of the largest corporations in the world had financial interests deeply rooted in traditional energy sources. Max knew the road ahead would be filled with tough negotiations, but he also knew that the future was unstoppable. Change was inevitable. Max's next big opportunity came in the form of an international summit in Dubai. World leaders, business magnates, and innovators were gathering to discuss the future of cities and sustainable technologies. It was a chance for Max to share the success of ecosphere and push for global agreements to reduce carbon emissions and further accelerate the transition to renewable energy. As he stood before the audience at the summit, Max felt the weight of the moment. The future of cities was at stake, and his words could help shape the course of history. "We are at a defining moment," Max began. "We are the first generation that has the opportunity, the technology, and the responsibility to create a world where our cities are sustainable, not just for us, but for future generations. Ecosphere is just the beginning. But what we build now will determine the fate of the planet for centuries to come." He looked out at the crowd of leaders. "We've seen the results in cities, in countries, and in communities. But we need to think bigger. The time for half measures is over. We need to commit to a future where every community, no matter their geography, no matter their income, has access to the tools they need to thrive sustainably." The applause that followed was thunderous, but Max knew the real work was just beginning. In the years that followed, the Ecosphere project continued to expand. What had started as a bold idea was now a global movement, transforming cities, industries, and lives. The technology continued to evolve, and new partnerships were formed every day. More countries, businesses, and organizations came on board, each contributing their expertise to the shared mission of creating a better future. Max looked around at the world that was taking shape, at the thriving, sustainable cities, at the clean energy grids, at the self-sustaining communities, and he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The path had been long, filled with obstacles and doubts, but the results were undeniable. The world was changing, and Max had been a part of that change. He had always believed that humanity's future could be brighter. Now, as he stood in the middle of a new, more sustainable world, he knew that the future he had envisioned was becoming reality. And this was just the beginning. As Max looked out over the bustling city of San Francisco, which had fully embraced Ecosphere's technologies, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The future wasn't just something to hope for anymore. It was here. And as the world continued to evolve, Max knew one thing for certain: the best was yet to come. The global transformation sparked by Ecosphere was unfolding at a rapid pace. With cities adopting sustainable technologies, renewable energy sources, and AI-driven infrastructure, Max had become not only a leader but a symbol of the new era of innovation. Yet, despite the many victories, the path forward was far from predictable. Challenges arose daily, but Max's vision remained clear: to create a future where technology didn't just serve people but worked in harmony with the planet. The next major frontier in Ecosphere's evolution was artificial intelligence. As the system continued to optimize energy usage, manage urban planning, and monitor environmental impacts, Max began to see the untapped potential of AI in shaping not just cities, but entire industries. And it wasn't just about efficiency anymore. It was about creating a truly intelligent system that could predict and adapt to the world's changing needs. One late afternoon, Max stood in front of a team of Ecosphere's brightest engineers and data scientists. Their mission was clear. They were going to enhance Ecosphere with a new AI system that could make real-time decisions based on global patterns in climate, economics, and human behavior. We're already seeing how AI can optimize traffic, reduce waste, and manage resources in cities. But what if we could go further? Max asked, his eyes gleaming with excitement. What if Ecosphere could not only react to problems, but anticipate them before they happen? The room fell silent. Max knew the stakes were high. What he was proposing was ambitious, perhaps even more ambitious than any of them had ever considered. But it was also the next logical step in the evolution of the project. We've built systems that respond to immediate needs. Now, we need to build something that can predict trends, analyze the global economy, understand social dynamics, and act as a proactive agent for change, he continued. I want Ecosphere to become more than a network of cities. I want it to be a global brain, a system that can foresee problems like resource shortages, energy crises, or climate anomalies and react before they become disasters. One of the lead engineers, Sarah, spoke up. This is a huge leap, Max. The amount of data we'd need to process is enormous. But if we could pull it off, we could revolutionize everything. AI that doesn't just monitor, it actively shapes the future. Max nodded. Exactly. It's not just about fixing problems. It's about preventing them from happening in the first place. As Ecosphere's engineers dove deep into developing this next-generation AI system, Max turned his attention to the global stage. With Ecosphere already making waves, there was a pressing need to address global challenges, such as economic disparity and the struggle to provide clean, sustainable water to every corner of the world. Max was invited to speak at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Conference in New York, an event that brought together world leaders, innovators, and philanthropists to address the most pressing global challenges. This time, however, Max wasn't just presenting Ecosphere as a solution to urban problems. He was prepared to propose something even bigger, a new framework for global cooperation. As he stepped onto the stage, he saw the diverse group of delegates in the audience. Leaders from different nations, environmental activists, economists, and tech innovators all shared one common goal: to create a sustainable future for all of humanity. Today, we are faced with an undeniable truth, Max began, his voice resonating through the room. Our current trajectory is unsustainable. Our cities are growing at an exponential rate, our resources are dwindling, and climate change is no longer something in the distant future. It's happening now. But I believe we can change the course of this future. Together. Max paused, his eyes scanning the audience. What if we could create a global network of interconnected cities, not just sharing resources, but sharing knowledge, technology, and innovation? What if we could combine the power of AI, sustainable energy, and smart infrastructure to create a world where no community is left behind? He could see the spark of interest in the eyes of many in the room. This wasn't just another tech pitch, it was a vision for the future of humanity, one that could bridge the gap between the developed and developing world, while tackling the most pressing challenges of our time. The truth is, Max continued, Ecosphere has already shown us that sustainability and progress can coexist. But now, we must build a global framework where nations can collaborate, share resources, and build on each other's successes. The room buzzed with energy as Max laid out a roadmap for the future. He proposed a series of global partnerships that would enable nations to share Ecosphere's technologies, with a focus on providing clean water, energy, and sustainable infrastructure to every corner of the world, particularly in regions that had been left behind in the rush of industrialization. The proposal was met with applause, but there were still questions. Some countries expressed concerns over how such an ambitious plan would be financed, while others questioned the feasibility of implementing Ecosphere in regions that lacked infrastructure. Max was prepared for these questions. We've already seen that the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of action, he said. Every dollar invested in sustainable infrastructure today is a dollar saved in the future through reduced healthcare costs, less reliance on foreign energy, and fewer climate-related disasters. As the summit continued, the momentum behind Max's proposal grew. By the end of the conference, several countries had already pledged their commitment to adopting Ecosphere and investing in a more sustainable future. In the weeks that followed, Max's team worked tirelessly to finalize the details of the global network. Partnerships were formed with NGOs, international banks, and tech companies, all working together to fund and implement the transition to a global network of sustainable cities. But even as the groundwork for this new global system was being laid, Max knew that the true challenge was not just technological, it was cultural. Ecosphere represented a shift in how humanity viewed itself. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about thriving together, as a global community. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Max sat on the balcony of his apartment, overlooking the city of San Francisco. The lights twinkled below him, and he thought about everything they had accomplished. Ecosphere had grown from an idea into a global movement, and it was changing the world in ways he had never imagined. But there was still more to be done. He stood up, his eyes focused on the horizon. The world was on the brink of a new era, and Max was ready to lead it. And so, with the global stage set and the infrastructure of the future already taking shape, Max and his. As the global framework for Ecosphere began to take shape, Max realized that this wasn't just about technological advancements or building smarter cities. It was about creating a global movement. The real challenge lay in uniting diverse nations, cultures, and industries under a shared vision for the future. The world was fractured in many ways, politically, economically, and ideologically, and convincing everyone to work together toward a common goal would be no easy feat. Max knew that change, even when it was for the greater good, often met resistance. But he believed that the power of Ecosphere's success, combined with the urgency of the world's climate crisis, would be enough to unite people around a single idea: sustainability. One of the first major tests of this unity came during the Global Sustainability Summit in London. Leaders, activists, and tech innovators from every corner of the globe were coming together to discuss the future of the planet. For Max, this summit represented a critical moment. It was time to prove that Ecosphere wasn't just a project for the privileged few, but a universal solution that could transcend borders, industries, and economic divides. As Max prepared for his keynote speech, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the early days of his meeting with the 6-year-old programmer to the sprawling, interconnected global network that Ecosphere had become, the road had been long, but it was about to reach its most crucial juncture. The summit opened with a series of speeches from world leaders who spoke passionately about the urgent need for global cooperation. But Max's speech, when it finally came, would be the one that turned heads. Standing on stage in front of thousands of people, Max felt the weight of history upon him. This was the moment where he would stake his claim not just as a leader in technology, but as a visionary for the future of the planet. Max began, his voice steady and clear. We have come to a turning point. The world is at a crossroads, and the choices we make today will shape the future for generations to come. We cannot afford to think of ourselves in isolation anymore. No country, no industry, no person can stand alone in this fight. We are all connected. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Ecosphere is more than just technology. It's a philosophy that believes in the power of collaboration, the strength of communities, and the importance of sustainability. What we've learned from building Ecosphere is this: the future isn't just about efficiency or profit, it's about connection. It's about ensuring that every person, everywhere, has access to the resources they need to thrive. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Max continued, we can create a world where technology serves the common good, where we don't just build smart cities, we build smarter, more sustainable societies. A world where every person, no matter their background or geography, has the opportunity to contribute to and benefit from this new era. The applause that followed was thunderous. Max knew, in that moment, that he had struck a chord with the audience. He had done more than present a vision. He had given them a sense of purpose. As the summit continued, Max's message began to resonate across borders. Countries that had previously been hesitant about committing to large-scale projects like Ecosphere began to come around. The benefits of sustainable infrastructure, reduced resource consumption, and climate resilience were becoming too clear to ignore. Max's team began working with national leaders to adapt Ecosphere to different regions' needs, making it clear that sustainability wasn't just for rich countries or megacities, it was for everyone. But while some countries were eager to jump on board, others remained skeptical, especially those whose economies were still heavily reliant on fossil fuels. For these countries, the transition to a sustainable future felt like an existential threat to their industries. Max knew it was a delicate balance, one that would require understanding and diplomacy. One of the most difficult negotiations took place with a coalition of oil-rich nations that had historically opposed the transition to renewable energy. The leaders of these countries argued that the global shift towards sustainability could bankrupt their economies, leaving millions unemployed and destabilizing entire regions. Max knew the stakes. These nations weren't just debating energy sources, they were fighting for their survival. So, instead of presenting ecosphere as a threat, he worked with his team to design a new plan. A way to transition oil-rich nations to sustainable practices while ensuring economic stability. At a high-stakes roundtable meeting, Max addressed the group of leaders from these nations. "I understand the concerns you have," he said, his tone empathetic. "The transition to a cleaner, more sustainable future cannot happen overnight. But we cannot afford to ignore the reality of climate change any longer. The truth is, the world is changing, and so must the way we think about energy. But this doesn't have to be a loss for your countries. It can be an opportunity." He spoke about ecosphere's ability to integrate oil-producing nations into a new economy focused on renewable energy, green technology, and sustainable agriculture. By investing in renewables and transitioning to a more sustainable model, you can protect your economies and secure jobs for future generations. This is an opportunity to create new industries, attract investments, and lead the world in innovation. The conversation was long, but in the end, Max's vision prevailed. Slowly but surely, even the most skeptical nations began to see the benefits of a green future. Some oil-rich countries began to invest in solar farms, wind energy, and hydrogen technologies, creating a diversified economy that was both resilient and future-proof. As the world continued to embrace sustainability, the economic shift became evident. Ecosphere wasn't just changing the way people lived, it was reshaping entire industries. Traditional energy companies were investing heavily in renewable resources. Tech giants were racing to develop smart cities powered by ecosphere technologies. And industries that had once been seen as polluting were now at the forefront of environmental innovation. But even as progress was being made, Max understood that the work wasn't done. As ecosphere expanded into new regions, there was still much to be done to ensure that every community, from the wealthiest cities to the most remote villages, could access the benefits of this new world. Late one night, as Max sat in his office, reflecting on the journey ahead, he received a message from the 6-year-old programmer, now 12 years old. The message was simple: "Thank you for believing in me. Together, we've changed the world." Max smiled to himself. The journey had been long, but the future was just beginning. Tomorrow, the world would take another step forward, and Max was ready to lead it. The stage was set for a new era, a world where innovation, collaboration, and sustainability were the pillars of society. And as Max prepared to face the challenges that lay ahead, he knew that no matter how difficult the road, the future was worth fighting for. The global transformation brought about by ecosphere was becoming undeniable. The world was evolving, cities were thriving, and nations that had once been divided by economic, political, and environmental challenges were now beginning to collaborate on a scale never before seen. Yet, despite the progress, Max knew that the true test was how sustainable the changes would be. The technology was powerful, the support was there, but it was how humanity responded, how they embraced this new world, that would determine its success. Max had always believed that technology could only go so far. Ultimately, it was the people who would carry the vision forward. Ecosphere had ignited a spark of global unity, but it was now up to individuals, communities, and entire nations to continue building on that foundation. As the Ecosphere platform expanded, Max and his team had to address the issue of integration. Cities had adopted Ecosphere technologies, but the technology needed to be adaptable to different environments and needs. One of the most exciting aspects of this phase was the introduction of local Ecosphere hubs, small-scale versions of the global platform designed for rural or developing areas. These hubs were designed to help smaller, less developed communities transition into sustainable living without the complex infrastructure found in large cities. They utilize solar power, small-scale water filtration systems, and local agriculture solutions, all powered by the central Ecosphere AI that had become the heart of the system. These hubs could be set up quickly, provide energy, improve health outcomes, and even boost local economies by creating new job opportunities. Max's next mission was clear: to push these hubs into every corner of the globe, ensuring that no one was left behind. He understood that to truly solve the world's problems, Ecosphere had to work for everyone. Max sat in a meeting with his core team, strategizing the next phase of expansion. They discussed how to move into some of the most underserved areas of the world, places where poverty, instability, and climate change had taken the most brutal toll. Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of Latin America were at the top of their list. "We've had tremendous success in urban areas," Max said, his voice focused. "But now it's time to turn our attention to the regions that need us the most. It's not enough to just put up solar panels and smart grids. We need to empower local communities. We need to make Ecosphere something they can control, something that brings real value to their lives." Sarah, the lead engineer, leaned forward. "The key will be in local partnerships. We'll need to work with grassroots organizations and local leaders to ensure the technology is accepted and adapted to the specific needs of the people. We can't impose our solution. We have to make it theirs." Max nodded. "Right. This isn't about creating a one-size-fits-all solution. This is about understanding the nuances of each community, each country, and finding ways to meet their needs." Over the next several months, Ecosphere rolled out its first wave of local hubs. They started in regions with the highest need, areas facing severe water shortages, unreliable energy, or environmental disasters. The hubs brought a range of benefits, including clean energy, access to healthcare, and education programs for children and adults alike. One of the most successful examples was in rural Kenya, where a partnership with local leaders allowed Ecosphere to install its first hub in a community that had never had access to electricity. The hub included solar-powered microgrids, a clean water system, and an educational center where people could learn new skills and trade practices. Within months, the local economy began to flourish. People who had once been dependent on aid were now generating their own income through local agriculture, energy production, and small businesses. Max's team worked closely with the Kenyan government and local organizations, ensuring the transition was smooth and the community was involved every step of the way. Within a year, the success in Kenya became a model for other regions, and Ecosphere began expanding into other parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. Back in the United States, the success of Ecosphere had sparked a new kind of optimism. People were beginning to see that their cities could thrive without sacrificing the planet. The challenge, however, was in overcoming decades of entrenched systems that had made sustainability seem like an afterthought. Max knew that the key to success lay in collaboration, not just among governments and corporations, but between communities. One of the most impactful projects had been in Detroit, where Max and his team worked with local activists to revitalize entire neighborhoods by integrating Ecosphere technology into urban renewal projects. These efforts were focused on bringing affordable housing, green spaces, and sustainable transportation to inner-city areas. In Detroit, Ecosphere worked with local leaders to design a self-sustaining neighborhood. Solar panels, vertical farming, and AI-driven waste management systems were integrated into the area. For the first time in years, people began to feel hopeful again. Property values rose, jobs were created, and the city, once in decline, began to thrive. Max visited Detroit often, walking through the neighborhoods that had been transformed. He listened to the stories of the people who lived there. Stories of struggle, of survival, but most importantly, stories of hope. This, he knew, was the real impact of Ecosphere. It wasn't just the technology. It was the people who were empowered by it, who saw their futures as brighter, more sustainable. One evening, as Max stood on the rooftop of his San Francisco apartment, he received a call from his old mentor, the 6-year-old programmer, now a teenager. "Max," the voice on the other end was excited. "I've been thinking, what if we could take Ecosphere even further? What if we could integrate biotechnology and robotics to create fully sustainable ecosystems? What if we could bring nature and technology together in perfect harmony?" Max smiled, knowing that his former protege had inherited the same drive and vision that had sparked the initial journey. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that will keep us moving forward," he replied. "The world is changing, and we need to stay ahead of it." The conversation shifted to ideas about biotechnologies that could help restore ecosystems and balance the relationship between humanity and the planet. From genetically modified plants that could survive extreme conditions to AI-managed urban forests that would help clean the air, The possibilities seemed endless. Max knew this was the next frontier. Ecosphere had created a foundation for sustainability, but now it was time to take it to the next level. But even as Ecosphere revolutionized the way people lived and worked, Max understood that global unity was fragile. There would always be obstacles, political disagreements, economic setbacks, natural disasters. The next phase would be one of constant innovation and adaptation. Max didn't have all the answers, but he knew that together, with the collective will of humanity, they could face anything. As he looked out over the city, a deep sense of purpose washed over him. Ecosphere had changed the world, but the journey was far from over. And as long as he had breath in his lungs, Max would continue to lead the charge, pushing for a future where innovation, sustainability, and collaboration could build a world truly united. The best was yet to come. As the momentum of Ecosphere continued to spread across the globe, the true test was how well humanity could adapt to the monumental changes it demanded. From rural communities in Africa to high-tech hubs in the United States, the principles of sustainability were being woven into the fabric of society. But as new opportunities arose, so did new challenges. Max understood that the journey was far from over. Each victory, while significant, was a step toward a future that was still unfolding. In the quiet moments between breakthroughs, Max would often reflect on the unpredictable journey that had led him here. Who could have predicted that the seed of change would come from a 6-year-old prodigy, or that a visionary project like Ecosphere would become the cornerstone of a global revolution? It wasn't just the technology. It was the collective will of people across the world that had turned it into something unstoppable. But in the vast complexity of a rapidly changing world, the question remained. How would Ecosphere continue to grow, evolve, and meet the needs of an ever-expanding population? One of the most exciting developments on the horizon was the integration of biotechnologies with Ecosphere's infrastructure. Max's former protege, the now 13-year-old programmer, had spent the last few months working on cutting-edge ideas for merging biotechnology with sustainable practices. Together, they were looking at a future where technology and nature weren't just compatible, they could thrive together. The team had proposed a groundbreaking concept: biospheres, self-sustaining ecosystems that would function autonomously within cities and remote areas alike. These biospheres would use genetically modified plants and algae to purify air and water, creating microclimates that would reduce pollution while simultaneously providing food and oxygen. The idea was ambitious but brilliant. These small, integrated systems could revolutionize how cities used resources. Rather than relying on external power grids and water systems, communities could create their own localized, resilient ecosystems, powered by renewable energy and regenerative agricultural practices. Max assembled his team of engineers, biotechnologists, and urban planners to discuss the feasibility of the Biosphere project. They spent weeks analyzing the science, tweaking designs, and calculating energy outputs. It was clear that the idea could work, but it would require intense collaboration across many fields. One of the most pressing issues was how to scale these biospheres globally. While the technology could provide an enormous amount of energy, water, and food to communities, the initial setup costs and complex design challenges made it an ambitious venture. The team quickly realized that these systems couldn't just be top-down projects. They needed to be deeply embedded in local cultures and practices. Max and his team began working closely with community leaders, local scientists, and farmers to understand the unique needs of different regions. The first biosphere prototype was built in a desert region in the Middle East, where water scarcity and extreme temperatures had made survival difficult for decades. The idea was to create a biosphere that could not only provide food and water, but also reduce the temperature of the surrounding area through innovative cooling systems. The success of the prototype was a breakthrough. The biosphere not only thrived in the harsh desert conditions, but also became a symbol of what could be achieved when technology, nature, and human ingenuity worked together. It became a beacon of hope for regions facing extreme environmental challenges. As more biospheres were built in different regions of the world, their impact was undeniable. Cities once plagued by air pollution began to see cleaner skies, while rural areas that had once struggled with food and water shortages began to prosper. Communities were thriving in ways they never thought possible, and a new sense of unity began to emerge as people from all walks of life embraced ecosphere's potential. But with this rapid expansion, new issues arose. While the technology had proven effective in providing basic needs, questions arose about the long-term impacts of a world fully integrated with ecosphere systems. Would these systems continue to evolve? How could the world keep up with the pace of innovation without leaving anyone behind? Max was keenly aware that sustainability wasn't just about meeting the immediate needs of the world. It was about future-proofing humanity for generations to come. So, he began to push for something bigger, a global innovation hub, a place where the brightest minds in every field could come together to tackle the world's most pressing challenges. The Ecosphere Global Innovation Hub would be located in a former industrial complex in Detroit, a city that had already proven the power of collaboration between technology, community, and sustainability. The hub would be a space where scientists, environmentalists, engineers, and policy experts could co-create new solutions for everything from climate change to social inequality. The idea was simple: to create a think tank for the future, where new technologies would be tested and refined, and where communities could come together to solve global problems. The opening of the Ecosphere Global Innovation Hub was a major milestone. The building itself was a symbol of what could happen when people worked together toward a common goal. It was designed to be a model of sustainability, incorporating every element of Ecosphere's technologies. Solar panels covered the roof, vertical gardens were planted inside, and sustainable materials were used throughout the structure. The grand opening was attended by global leaders, tech pioneers, environmental activists, and young innovators, all eager to contribute their ideas to the next phase of human evolution. Max stood before the crowd, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. He could sense that the world was on the brink of something extraordinary. But as he looked out at the sea of eager faces, he realized that the future was no longer his to shape alone. It belonged to everyone. Ecosphere was never just about technology, he said, his voice filled with conviction. It's about each and every one of us. It's about the collective power of human creativity and compassion. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter, one where we can all work together to create a better future. The crowd erupted into applause, and Max felt a sense of unity he had never experienced before. This wasn't just the next phase of Ecosphere. This was the dawn of a new era. In the weeks that followed, the Global Innovation Hub became a melting pot of ideas and collaborations. Engineers from the United States worked alongside farmers from Brazil, biotechnologists from India teamed up with urban planners from Europe, and activists from Africa helped shape policies for sustainable development. The collaborative spirit of the hub was palpable, and Max couldn't help but marvel at how far the world had come. It had been a long and often difficult journey, but now, more than ever, it felt as if humanity was poised to step into a future where sustainability wasn't just a dream. It was a reality. But Max knew that as exciting as these developments were, the work was far from finished. The path ahead would require constant innovation, new ideas, and, most importantly, the continued dedication of everyone involved. The seeds of innovation had been planted, and they were already beginning to grow. The question now was how far they could reach, and how deep their roots would go. As Max stood on the balcony of the Global Innovation Hub, looking out at the bustling city of Detroit, he realized that the true challenge lay not in the technology itself, but in how the world would continue to evolve. There were still so many obstacles to overcome: climate change, inequality, and the threat of social unrest. But for the first time in a long while, Max was filled with a sense of optimism. The journey had only just begun. The dawn of the ecosphere revolution had ushered in a new age of global cooperation and technological harmony, but as Max and his team knew, such transformations weren't achieved without continuous effort, adaptation, and vigilance. The seeds of innovation had been sown, but now, it was time for those seeds to flourish on a scale beyond imagination. The Ecosphere Global Innovation Hub had become a focal point for forward-thinking solutions, a place where the brightest minds across all fields gathered to tackle humanity's greatest challenges. With every breakthrough, the world seemed to inch closer to the ideal Max had always envisioned: a sustainable, interconnected, and united global community. But the transition, Max realized, wasn't just about technology. It was about changing the hearts and minds of people across the world. Technology could open doors, but it was up to humanity to walk through them. Max and his core team had been working on a radical new development, the Ecosphere 2.0. While the original Ecosphere platform had revolutionized how cities, communities, and ecosystems coexisted, Ecosphere 2.0 promised to take things even further by seamlessly integrating artificial intelligence, renewable energy systems, and biotechnology into a single cohesive network capable of optimizing every aspect of life on Earth. Ecosphere 2.0 was more than just an upgrade. It was the next step in the evolution of the planet itself. The new version would not only improve the efficiency of the ecosystems already in place, but would also create new, fully autonomous living cities that could adapt to any environment, from dense urban centers to isolated rural areas, and even to extreme climates. It was ambitious, no doubt, but after years of building Ecosphere's foundation, Max believed the time was finally right for something truly game-changing. A test city was selected for the Ecosphere 2.0 prototype, a sprawling urban area in Brazil that faced both environmental and socio-economic challenges. Rio de Janeiro, once known for its stunning landscapes and vibrant culture, had been grappling with severe air pollution, flooding, and infrastructure failure. The city had long been a symbol of inequality, with a stark contrast between the wealthy and the impoverished. With Ecosphere 2.0, Max and his team aimed to turn Rio into a model of resilience and innovation. The plan was audacious: to build a self-sustaining city that would rely entirely on renewable energy, cutting-edge urban farming techniques, and climate-controlled environments. The integration of AI would allow the city to respond dynamically to challenges like extreme weather, energy shortages, or water crises, ensuring that the people of Rio, regardless of their socio-economic status, would have access to the resources they needed to thrive. The development was a massive undertaking, involving local authorities, urban planners, environmentalists, and scientists from around the world. It was also a significant cultural undertaking, as it would require the active involvement of the local community, with education initiatives designed to help the people of Rio understand and embrace the technology that would shape their future. Max made frequent visits to the construction site, seeing firsthand the transformation that was taking place. The bustling streets of Rio were being replaced with green rooftops, energy-efficient transportation systems, and vertical farms that provided fresh produce to neighborhoods that had once struggled with food insecurity. One of the most exciting developments was the city's water purification system, powered by Ecosphere's AI technology. The system was designed to extract water from the air, purify it, and redistribute it across the city. The once parched areas of Rio were now lush with greenery, and the streets were cleaner than they had been in decades. But beyond the physical changes, Max could see the shift in the people. Children who had grown up in impoverished neighborhoods were now attending schools designed around hands-on learning, where they could engage with technology, explore new agricultural techniques, and gain the skills needed for a future in a sustainable world. As Ecosphere 2.0 began to take shape in Rio, Max was approached by an influential figure, Rafael, a local community leader who had grown up in one of the city's favelas. Rafael had been skeptical at first, questioning whether a project like Ecosphere could truly address the needs of the most vulnerable in society. But as he saw the progress unfold, new job opportunities, improved healthcare, better education, he became one of the project's biggest advocates. "Max, you've built something incredible here," Rafael said, standing on the rooftop of a new community center in the heart of Rio's favelas. "But it's not just the technology that's making this work. It's the people. It's how you've engaged us, how you've brought us into this transformation. We are part of this." Max smiled, grateful for Rafael's perspective. "You're right," he replied. "It's not just about technology, it's about people. It's about creating a system where everyone can thrive. This is as much your victory as it is mine." The success of Ecosphere 2.0 in Rio was quickly noticed worldwide. The city's transformation became a beacon for other struggling urban centers to follow. With the model now proven, Max and his team turned their attention to scaling Ecosphere 2.0 to other cities across the globe. In each new location, the process was slightly different. While the core principles of sustainability, renewable energy, and AI-driven ecosystems remained the same, The implementation needed to be tailored to the unique challenges of each place. In Lagos, Nigeria, for example, the focus was on improving access to clean water and reducing air pollution. In Jakarta, Indonesia, the emphasis was on addressing rising sea levels and strengthening flood defenses. Each city faced its own set of obstacles, but Max knew that Ecosphere could help. Meanwhile, in the Global Innovation Hub, Max and his team continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. They were exploring ways to integrate biotechnology even further, using genetic engineering to create crops that could grow in the most extreme environments. They were also working on next-generation robotics that could assist in tasks like waste management and environmental cleanup, making cities more efficient and self-sustaining. But as the vision for a unified, sustainable world grew closer to reality, Max remained grounded in the fundamental truth that had driven him from the beginning. Ecosphere wasn't just about technology, it was about building a world where everyone had access to the tools and opportunities needed to succeed. The real challenge was ensuring that no one was left behind, that every person, every community, and every nation had the chance to benefit from this new era. As the days passed, Max realized that this was more than just a project. It was a movement, one that had the potential to change the very fabric of society. And with each new success, with every city transformed and every life improved, he knew that humanity was on the right path. The age of harmony had arrived, but the work was far from over. Together, with innovation and collaboration at the core of their mission, humanity would continue to build a future that was sustainable, inclusive, and resilient. One that future generations would be proud to inherit. Max stood once again on the rooftop of the Global Innovation Hub, looking out at the skyline of a city that had been reborn. The sun was setting, casting a golden light across the landscape. He felt a sense of peace that had eluded him for much of his life, a sense of hope for a future that was finally in reach. The world was changing, and for the first time, Max truly believed that it was for the better. And as he gazed toward the horizon, he knew one thing for certain. The journey was just beginning. As the world continued to embrace the revolutionary changes brought by Ecosphere, Max and his team found themselves navigating new and uncharted territory. The successes in cities like Rio, Lagos, and Jakarta had demonstrated the potential of Ecosphere's vision, but the task ahead was more complex than simply scaling up solutions. The world was constantly evolving, and so too were the challenges that came with it. The most pressing issue was the growing resistance from certain factions of society. While the majority of the population welcomed the changes brought by Ecosphere, a vocal minority feared the rapid pace of technological advancement. Concerns about privacy, the loss of traditional industries, and the fear of over-reliance on artificial intelligence began to spread. These concerns were not unfounded. After all, the integration of AI into every aspect of life was uncharted territory. Max understood the fears that were being voiced, and he knew that the success of Ecosphere depended not only on technological innovation but also on trust. People needed to feel secure in their use of the system. They needed to know that their privacy was protected, that their jobs wouldn't disappear, and that they would be part of this new world, rather than sidelined by it. To address these concerns, Max called for a global summit on the ethics of AI and technological integration. Leaders, ethicists, technologists, and activists from all over the world were invited to gather at the Ecosphere Global Innovation Hub in Detroit. The goal was clear: to ensure that as Ecosphere expanded, it would do so with a focus on equity, privacy, and the well-being of all people. Max sat at the head of the table as the summit began, his mind racing with thoughts of the global challenges ahead. As he looked around at the faces in the room, he felt the weight of the moment. It was a rare opportunity to shape the direction of an entire movement and potentially the future of humanity itself. The first speaker was Dr. Eliza Carter, a leading ethicist in the field of AI. She began with a sobering reminder of the power of technology. While AI has the potential to solve some of the world's most pressing problems, we must always remember that it is a tool, not a solution in and of itself. The ethical guidelines that govern AI usage must be rooted in fairness, accountability, and transparency. Max nodded, appreciating Dr. Carter's point. There was a real need for guidelines, clear, robust frameworks that would ensure Ecosphere would be used responsibly. But it was also clear that these discussions would be far more complicated than they seemed on the surface. The summit continued for days, with intense debates about the future of work in an AI-driven world, the ethics of genetic engineering, and the potential consequences of relying on technology for basic human needs. One key issue that dominated the discussions was the concept of a universal basic income, UBI. With the automation of many industries, there was a legitimate fear that millions of jobs would be displaced. How could society ensure that people continued to thrive if their livelihoods were upended by technological advancements? The idea of a UBI had been floated before, but with ecosphere's rapid expansion, the urgency of addressing it grew. Max was deeply invested in the idea, not as a permanent solution, but as a safety net during the transition period as society adjusted to the new world. In many ways, UBI could act as a bridge, helping people adjust to the automation-driven economy, giving them time to learn new skills, and ensuring that they had access to the resources they needed. Max had always been a visionary, someone who could see the potential of the world beyond its immediate limitations. But this summit was proving to him that the future was not just about solving problems. It was about balancing innovation with empathy, progress with caution. He couldn't help but think of the young prodigy who had been the spark for this entire revolution. He remembered the first time he met the 6-year-old coder and how, despite his youth, the child had seen a way forward that so many others had missed. It was a reminder that the future wasn't in the hands of the powerful or the wealthy. It was in the hands of everyone, young and old alike. Max had already begun to formulate a plan to implement a global trust initiative within Ecosphere. This initiative would focus on transparency, ensuring that every person, regardless of their status, would have access to the data and information they needed to make informed decisions about how Ecosphere impacted their lives. It would also foster accountability, making sure that no company, government, or individual could exploit the system for personal gain. As the summit came to a close, Max stood before the assembly, exhausted but hopeful. The discussions had been difficult, but they had also been necessary. Ecosphere could not just be a technological revolution. It had to be a social one, too. It had to lift everyone up, not just the privileged few. I want to thank all of you for your time, your wisdom, and your passion, Max said, his voice strong despite the fatigue that was beginning to weigh on him. We've created something powerful, something that could change the world. But we've also learned something crucial here today. Ecosphere is not just about innovation. It's about responsibility. It's about trust. And it's about making sure that we don't leave anyone behind. The crowd nodded, some of them standing and clapping as Max spoke. There was a palpable sense of solidarity in the room, a shared commitment to ensuring that Ecosphere was a force for good in the world. It was a moment of unity that Max would carry with him as he prepared for the next chapter of the journey. In the weeks that followed the summit, the Ecosphere team began implementing the guidelines that had been established, taking the necessary steps to ensure that the technology would be used ethically and responsibly. The Global Trust Initiative was launched, providing the framework for ongoing transparency and accountability. Max felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be resistance, there would be setbacks, and there would be unforeseen challenges. But he knew that the seeds of a new world had been planted, and with continued collaboration, innovation, and compassion, they would continue to grow. And so, the journey continued, with Max at the forefront, pushing the boundaries of what was possible, all the while ensuring that the future was one where every human being could thrive. Ecosphere was no longer just a vision. It was the reality of the world that people were building together. And as Max gazed out at the horizon once more, he knew that, despite the challenges, the future had never looked brighter. The world was evolving, and Max could only wonder what uncharted territories lay ahead. But he was ready for whatever came next. The landscape had changed. It wasn't just the cities that had transformed, but society itself. Ecosphere had moved beyond being a mere tool for sustainability and progress. It had become the framework upon which the world was being rebuilt. No longer just a network of intelligent cities, it was a living, breathing entity that reflected the collective will of humanity, guided by innovation, empathy, and collaboration. Max stood before the monumental glass windows of the Global Innovation Hub, overlooking a landscape that was now more verdant than ever. The world seemed to hum with possibility, the symbiosis of technology and nature playing out before him. Every decision, every breakthrough, had brought the world closer to the dream he had always had. A world where sustainability and prosperity weren't at odds, but intrinsically linked. Yet, even as he watched the landscape unfold, he couldn't ignore the quiet anxiety gnawing at him. The world had adapted to ecosphere's advancements, but that didn't mean the road ahead would be without obstacles. The technology had worked, cities had grown cleaner, healthier, and more efficient. But now, more than ever, humanity was faced with a fundamental question. Could society maintain this harmony? Could people continue to adapt as the world evolved at such an unprecedented pace? Max's thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at his door. It was Sarah, his closest confidant, and one of the original team members who had worked alongside him since the early days of Ecosphere. "Max," she said, stepping into his office, "I think it's time we talk about the next phase." Max nodded, his eyes scanning the view. "What's next?" "It's not just about expanding anymore," Sarah said, her voice serious but filled with hope. "It's about scaling the values we've built, making sure the next generation understands what we've learned and how far we've come. There are still communities that feel disconnected from the progress. We need to shift the focus to education. Empower the next generation to not only use the technology, but to think critically about it." Max had always known this day would come. Ecosphere's initial success had been focused on infrastructure, on building the framework that would connect the world in sustainable ways. But education, instilling in people, especially the youth, a sense of responsibility and awareness, was the next critical piece. "We've already done so much with the global networks, Sarah," Max said, "but you're right. It's the next generation that will need to carry this forward. We need to create an educational ecosystem that fosters creativity, critical thinking, and understanding of the technologies that are shaping our future. But more than that, we need to give them the tools to innovate for a world we can't yet fully see." Sarah smiled. "I think we've got the perfect place to start." The next phase of Ecosphere was about to take shape in a way that Max hadn't anticipated. A global movement dedicated not just to technological advancement, but to fostering a new mindset in the youth of the world. They had already partnered with schools and universities to integrate Ecosphere principles into curriculums, but it wasn't enough. The next generation had to understand the delicate balance between technology and humanity's shared responsibility to the planet. Max and Sarah launched a global initiative they called Future Builders. This project aimed to provide not just education, but opportunities for young people to directly engage with the challenges and solutions that shape their cities, their ecosystems, and their economies. Future Builders would create immersive experiences where children and young adults could participate in building local ecosphere hubs, learning how to design sustainable solutions in their own communities, while gaining hands-on experience in biotechnology, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and more. At the heart of this initiative was the belief that the youth should be empowered to take ownership of their future. As cities like Rio de Janeiro, Lagos, and Jakarta had shown, the power of community collaboration was limitless. Now, that collaboration needed to extend to the next generation, empowering them to innovate, to build, and to lead. Months passed, and the Future Builders initiative began to take off. In every corner of the globe, young minds were coming together to form new, grassroots networks, working side by side with scientists, engineers, and local leaders to create solutions that were not only sustainable, but tailored to the unique needs of their regions. From schools in rural India experimenting with solar-powered irrigation systems, to youth-led projects in sub-Saharan Africa that focused on repurposing waste into usable resources, the movement was growing. Max watched as the world began to shift again, this time from the ground up. The innovations came not just from top-down systems, but from the ingenuity and creativity of the youth, who now felt more connected to their world than ever before. This was the legacy Max had envisioned. The world wasn't just adapting to Ecosphere, it was evolving alongside it. At a gala event held in Tokyo to celebrate the success of the Future Builders initiative, Max was invited to give a speech. The room was filled with young leaders from around the world, each one embodying the promise of a better future. He looked out over the crowd, his heart swelling with pride. "Tonight," Max began, his voice strong but filled with emotion, We stand at the crossroads of something extraordinary. We've built a world that's sustainable, interconnected, and full of opportunity. But that world is not ours to control. It belongs to all of us, and it especially belongs to the generations who will come after us. You, the future builders, are the ones who will carry this vision forward. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The faces before him were a mix of determination, hope, and excitement. We have learned that technology is a tool, not a solution in itself. The solution lies within each of you. The ability to think critically, to innovate, and to challenge the status quo. The world we are creating is one that belongs to everyone, no matter where they come from or what resources they have. Together, we will shape a future that is not only sustainable but just. After the gala, Max walked out into the cool Tokyo night, a sense of peace settling over him. He had always known that the future wasn't just about ecosphere. It was about the people who would continue to push the boundaries of what was possible, guided by the principles of innovation, equality, and shared responsibility. As he walked down the street, a group of young students approached him. They had come to the event as part of the Future Builders program. Max smiled as they began to ask questions about his journey, about ecosphere, and about the future of humanity. He listened intently, their curiosity reminding him of the passion that had driven him all those years ago. One of the students, a young girl with bright eyes, asked, "Mr. Musk, what's next for the world? What can we do to make sure that everything we've built lasts?" Max's heart swelled as he thought about the journey ahead. "The next step," he said, "is for all of you to continue. This is your world now. Keep questioning, keep building, keep creating, and never forget that the most powerful tool we have is each other." As the world looked to the future, Max knew one thing for certain. The legacy of ecosphere would not lie in its technology, but in the people it inspired. The journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. The seeds had been planted, in the future, driven by collaboration, innovation, and the spirit of humanity, was ready to grow.